continue. Let me know if you need anything. Everybody's going to be using that door. So. We've got an extra table if you want.
Yeah, let's
Put the owl.
put the owl on that. Yeah.
Our hats are done. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
I figured we'll probably won't pay for them from that.
Yeah, she should be okay.
What's your login for this?
So it's right there. Password capital P1.
Great password.
Very secure.
Where'd Aaron go?
He hopped out to make a phone call.
Oh, he can't get in. I gotta let him in. He's locked out. John, can I help or not? I don't know if I'm inclined to understand.
Yeah, give me a. I'm just getting logged into some things
I'm
here.
gonna set my office up right here.
So Shauna, if you would, on whatever laptop you're using, sign in to
X-Mine?
Xmine and then log into the meeting.
I'm gonna use this big smartboard for X-Mine.
Cool.
Yeah. Because it's just easier than my little laptop. Yeah.
Carry your neck.
Okay, so we'll figure out. Yeah, you know, I was doing the our excellent for Monday, right? Getting the pictures and stuff in, and then
Yeah.
Amber texted me, she's like, hey, it's fire code call. I'm like, it's on my calendar. She didn't put the invite in, she just said the Zoom, but she didn't do the invite, and put the Zoom invite. I'm like, crap. So I got on that for like 2 hours. So I'm gonna work on that a little bit. Probably this weekend, get ready for the boss, you know, but which is fine, because I'm super close, you know, so. But yeah, I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And Did we put it under mitigation strategies? Yeah. It's not the latest though, that's December 8th.
They're recent. Let's see.
Just on the X line, right? Maybe like this. Here it is. You see all handle lands.
Yeah. That should link that to.
Yeah. There you go. You know, I was thinking too, Anthony was just, at one point I was just gonna give you my password for all hands on lands, right? And just log in on it. Because I sent the link, but the link obviously didn't work when you clicked on it.
I mean, it went to my, because you, that's weird. Why is that upside down?
Upside
Wasn't doing that the other
Yeah,
day.
so,
Is there a setting?
yeah, that's the little Logitech camera. So there you go, that purple Logitech thing. Yep. We open it up there.
Need like
And then-
180 or something.
Well, that tells it
Ah,
to go through that app or program to use the camera.
okay.
I couldn't get it to stay right side up.
So
So now go back to Zoom and under there you go. And then that, if you go back into this purple, that purple app settings, you can get rid of that little watermark at the bottom, I think, and that is down in this list down here. Maybe advanced.
it's fine if it's still if it's there. Yeah, I'll just leave it there for.
Okay.
So that's
Time sheets today too. Music, yeah, we need music. We're always playing music. What was that?
It's like a Netflix ad.
Oh. Rob usually gets our music going for us in the morning. So I guess I should probably get this saved to the web. I should save this to the Google Drive, the most current one, right?
Yep.
Rob?
Yeah,
So,
and you can also do the, yeah, it's good practice. to do
Right,
that.
to
The
remember.
thumb drive is also hooked into that.
well, the save to the Google Drive, remember, we've got to re-download it. I get over it. Is that how we did it?
No, there was a feature on the left or a command on the left.
Let's just get it to the smart stick too for now, right?
Yeah. Okay, so you're in save as, so yeah. So then do that. And then,
Yeah, no, I remember like, let's just get it in here for now. And then what we have to do, I think. Remember we want to drive.
Was it under new? But first select where you want it to go, and you're already there.
Oh, 6. That's not the way it's- yeah, it's 'cause it's the one that's all- And then we open it. There we go. That's right.
Worked on it since December 6th, right? 17. It was 0.1.
Wow. Drive. So this is interesting. Remember how I told you if you wanted to add something to it, you can't do it in the Google Drive. Pictures, it's not there. That thing on top. We won't have to do any of that for this. We want to just take some important notes. Right? People,
Yeah, the trick is gonna be, the goal here is to share this via Zoom, right? So people can
Right.
see live edits.
if that's what Anthony wants, so, if he does, then we'll just bring our Google Drive up over there, so it's in the drive, and then we edit from.
Yeah.
Because you can't really see the smart drive when you're,
You can't see the board from here.
unless we try to turn it.
Because it's just a lit.
I think just given the,
We'll just take our notes over here.
I think take your notes, and if we get to a point where we want to share what you're taking notes on, like as part of our kind of recap toward the end,
That would pull it up.
then we can pull it up and share, or
You should be able to share from this.
like if you're on Zoom on that computer, you can then, I can just make you a co-host and you can share from there.
Okay, so let's get Zoom up and practice that,
Yep.
so, the email, we just need the code. So let's get the Zoom. So we want, and you have the Zoom up right now?
Yeah, it's on, so if you sign in, you'll be able to join.
Okay, yep, I just gotta get the meeting ID stuff.
Where's y'all?
Right to the back and the right. I think Alan will probably be joining us. So we'll get like,
Yeah, you want to get a 2-person station here for this?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, or how about this? Right, whatever you want.
Okay, yeah, let me in there.
Okay, you're in now.
We shouldn't have to set anything up.
Nope, and you can leave your video off if you want to.
I'll leave my video off until we need
Yeah, leave
to.
your video and leave your sound off. Like you leave your video off the entire time.
Exactly.
So essentially all you'll do
Share
is
screen.
I need to make you a co-host. So you can do that. Just a second. You're now a co-host. Yeah, I should make this. That's already a host because it's signed in as me.
Right, so if I do the share the screen and we have it up on the screen and then I can click here. We can go to the X line. There it is. Coming. If you want, make this guy small.
Yep.
Secure facility.
Yeah, I know. I feel privileged.
And one thing, if you don't mind doing while Erin and I are getting folks set up, just wait a second while I'm admitting her. But we'll, I'll get started admitting people once they, because 10, 15 minutes people start chiming in here. But as Erin and I start doing like introductions and stuff, if you will
Watch if people are joining, let them
Yeah.
in.
Perfect.
And then also, you guys got someone monitoring the chat?
So we'll
You guys,
I can monitor. Do you want me to log on too and log on my machine?
if you don't mind,
Yeah.
and Emily will be on as well too. If I can, here, go ahead and
I
go
can do
on.
that.
yes, is wherever, pull up a thing right
There's
here.
a
Yes.
station there if you want.
Yeah.
And then, because when we do a ton of Zoom meetings and, when we don't monitor the chat, like somebody,
oh,
oh
totally.
my God, like, it's like, I told you that in the chat, and then it's like going, so. Then we're like, okay, somebody has to monitor the chat period, right?
Yes. And I'm available to
Cool.
Thank you.
things
Yeah,
too.
you
so.
can monitor.
Do you, Anthony, with this, I mean, I've been thinking you're primarily kind of cleaning this thing up,
You'll
but
have to say some things there.
I can say things, but so just tell me where you need me.
Well, at the beginning, because you instigated this.
I did it.
You're the instigator.
Well,
This is gonna be good.
So,
I
so Sarah and I'll go ahead, I'll do the welcomes. We were gonna do I was gonna give Shauna a bit of time to tell people where bathrooms are and all that kind of stuff. We don't need to do that.
Right.
in your, down your hall.
Last time you used it.
Yeah,
Exactly, yeah.
I will pull that funny, I will pull that line again today, because I haven't done that in a while. And then I'm gonna pass it off to you to set the framing of why we're meeting today and I did, Marcia might be here in person.
Oh, great.
I don't know, she was like, maybe not, and I was like, well, you feel free to be here, because you are kind of like the co-leader of this, so. If you wanna be here. And so if she's here, I'll give her, if she's on virtual, I'll give her a chance to chime in too. And then we'll dive into our quick round of introductions, which is going to be named, who you work for, and then what your value is, or the values that you're representing. And then we'll bounce back out and dive into the like part one piece.
And parts of discussion you need me to lead, it's, I mean, you guys got like maps up and everything already?
Yeah, so what's gonna happen here is Shauna and Allison created this cool mind map
Awesome.
thing, and I haven't been able to access it yet, but we're working on that. And so essentially, I don't know, Shauna, do you wanna walk quickly
sure.
through what you got there?
So we just tried to get everything organized about who's who in the zoo, right? So,
Oh, cool.
oops. So mitigation, who's doing what in mitigation, right? And just
Awesome.
starting at the high level, federal, and then working down
Perfect.
state, local, fire protections, state, lab, private, Southern UVIA. All the city and county, what's going on in the city and county,
Nice.
kind of trying to organize who's doing what for mitigation. And then we went into education.
Awesome.
Right, showed WAP and everything that you guys, WAP does, and the wildfire advisory report, I gotta spell that out.
So they see themselves primarily as education, huh?
Well,
They
they're doing three different things, so,
Okay.
they got education, mitigation,
Gotcha.
and then, some industry stuff, so I think I had them right here. Where did I put the WAP? Here, wildfire advisory
Okay.
report. They have three things: mitigation, education, and land use.
Okay.
And so the cool thing on this X line is that, I'll just stop sharing if you want, so. You can make relationships, right? So you can go like this and go, hey, there's a relationship with land use in this one or whatever, right?
Sweet.
You know, so our goal is kind of try to, one,
Nice.
find out who's doing what,
I love it.
and then, what are some of the gaps? And then how do we make like a top 10 list priority in the county
Mm-hmm.
that we want to work on, right?
Yeah.
And then how do we support these guys? Where does it go with the biomass, the timber, you got the real estate developers and insurance and of course, health council, contractors, LPA, ton of stuff in the omnibus from 18, with power lines all through natural forests and jurisdictions. It's looks great.
Love it.
Yeah, gaps and opportunities, and you can do tons of stuff in X-Mine, like put pictures in there, so it's a presentation platform.
Yeah.
You can also do cool stuff like this, so you can just minimize it down, so you don't want to blow everyone's mind, right? So
I love it.
go like, hey, today we're gonna be talking about Plata County, all hands, all lands.
Yeah.
These are areas we're gonna talk about, eventually, like, it can be a nice platform. If
Yeah.
this group meets like 4 times a year, it'd be super cool. Right? Like a
Agreed.
quarterly kind of meeting, and it's a platform to track things, follow it, share it here and there. And then, so today is just kind of like, what are the gaps from all these presentations? People are just spewing out stuff.
Yeah.
How can we identify some of the gaps, and then where are we gonna go next, Because what I'm finding out right now, like, we, the county, haven't really put in for grants and stuff to do mitigation work, right?
Yeah.
And so, trying to do that, and I'm going through GHSEM for some HMP grants, which comes down from FEMA for, mitigation. Pain in the butt, I just found out all this other new stuff, like they have to get done, and so the county doesn't even have like a checklist going, okay, so you need your priorities, you need your EA, they have like miniature EA kind of stuff to get done, right?
Yeah.
And, anyway, so,
It's interesting because I think too, like it'll be, there's some confusion about what parts of the county can what. I think that's within the county.
Yeah.
And I think that's within our partners too.
totally. I'm gonna go like this, because it seems weird to have my angle over there, right?
I
So.
like all the big TVs.
So,
You been in here before?
Yeah.
Good, so we've totally, like, we just got access to be in here.
Oh,
We, the county emergency management and the EOC, like, when I got my job, I had no office, right? It was over at the tech center, and we had to get approval for us to get our offices in here through the board. So
oh,
time with people going away and stuff like
Right.
that, and so we finally got in here to get everything working, but nothing worked when I got my job. Nothing, the TVs didn't work, they didn't even know how to turn on the smart board, right? And so we got that done, and then Rob's got everything, I'm kind of doing it this way, I think, Rob. So how do you
Okay,
want to
so
do
here,
that?
I'm thinking maybe
for
instead
part
of 2
two.
tables there, just one, and have a little,
Just turn
So also,
Yeah.
Yeah,
there'll be like a conversation going back and forth on those things. And I think we'll start, given that we have that list of things thus far.
For Marcia.
yeah. So come look in here, this calls, yeah, those are all my, so I worked at 9/11. So I spent a month in Ohio, right? And I had saved all my instant action plans.
wow.
So I've been like cleaning out the house and getting things, and I thought, I'm gonna bring them in, so they're all the little guys around. So
Awesome.
I put in there with the different pictures.
This
But
is
in-
cool.
Yeah, so in here, so when we do get something set up,
Yeah.
we activate the check-in status system, so we know who's working on the fire, help with evacuations. And this is a call center, and here where all the phone calls come in.
Oh, cool.
And then we turn all these radios back here, so we're monitoring all this stuff.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, it's been great.
You guys got it all set up. This is
We
amazing.
got the big plotter going over there. Finally got that working. We did our first print of that, the print was Anna City Mountain. We were like, yeah. So we hung it on the fridge. We were like, oh, we got something for it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So here's where you guys get the file.
Hey, how are you? Good, how are
Then
you?
Aaron, see, here's pictures of the actual, what's that? The file. So I worked with the West.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna put the order these are too much for the dog might get it.
With
Not
come
good
for
for
us. I've got workstations today.
So, I was doing here, got a spot here, you can take that. Wherever you want to be.
Wherever, I don't care where I'm at.
Yeah.
Wasn't
It's
inside.
all clean, traffic check down.
Coffee for me to refill. There.
Definitely. These refills.
Restroom, you can reach for it.
I did the night shift, so I gave.
Wow. Very cool, nice work.
Yeah, so we're trying to get some pictures up and around.
Everybody's so stoked to have you here. Sean.
I'm excited to be here too, be home. You see, you saw these, are those right?
Yeah.
Cool. We're trying to get organized here in our room a little better, right? How do you think?
I'm just happy you guys are using this place.
I know, me
It's
too.
awesome.
Totally. We got coffee back there too, so
Cool.
put my bag away.
Yeah, we were discussing how awesome that the county's
We're getting
doing
there.
EOC type things,
Yes,
like legit.
yes.
Totally.
Team
Team
orientation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so guess what? On my, now what I found.
Hi, Marcia, we hear you're running late, so, oh. Just a second, I just went viral.
There is a gate. She said, just push the button when you drive.
Okay, yeah. Go to the little gate.
Bye.
Rob?
Just answer, did they ring it?
They're about to.
Oh, okay. Wait till it rings, pick up the phone.
Are you all doing a quick audio check? Can folks hear me online?
Yep, can hear you.
Thanks, Chief Evans.
Aaron, I got this like right here for you too when you're talking, when you want to, so you can look at.
I love that.
Kind of like what there goes up.
So many TV screens. Yeah. Like I would just live in this one.
Super long. Yeah, I totally work off of the smart board. Like, I'm like, why would I use a different computer? Because that's like this huge screen, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the owl's cool, huh? How it shows everything. I know, it's just, we're supposed to.
I know we're supposed to, the boss shows up, so. Like,
Recording in.
I got it from the like, so easy on your ears, better than the, all the cool, 32 cool, probably online somewhere, probably made in China.
What is it with now, at least the warnings from the school about some sort of TikTok challenge my kids.
Crazy.
I think as long as you're talking with them.
Apparently not some of these.
I was hoping we could try, but the vehicle never heated up, but
It's not that
Just
deep.
don't eat your Tide Pods.
no,
That's
I
all-
just couldn't remember doing that.
This is tripping me out.
Which part?
I fix that.
Don't unmute.
Is that you, James? Is that who's getting tripped out?
No, it's Kyle. I see Aaron and Aaron.
Yeah, buddy.
Ow.
Like I'm gonna make it even weird. Well, I can't make it weirder. I would do my best though. You know I would.
Marcia's not if you actually
Welcome, folks. We're getting everybody signed in here. We'll be rolling here in a few moments. First of all, thank you for the sort of slight change in plans here as far as our meeting attendance kind of last minute. A few of us in the room here, so we're juggling some technology right now, so hopefully everything will work just fine. We have lots of screens going and apparently a lot of cameras there, and you can turn your camera off.
Oh, good, cool.
So that trip.
It was fun freaking everybody out. Yeah, thank you all for responding to the Zoom request. There are a handful here in the what is this? This is mission control, I guess, because Anthony and Allison and Shauna helped set up some structures in here. So that's why you're seeing a handful of folks in here. But really appreciate everybody making the adjustment.
Cool, and thanks, Emily. Emily's one great support person and team associate with the forest program. Thank you, Emily, for that.
Should I join or should I just do it?
You don't have to join, you need to present, you just could, are you presenting? Yeah.
Yeah, so for folks joining, if you have slides to present, a few of you send me stuff, so I'll have that teed up for you. If you'd like to present, please just drop your name in the chat right now, or just raise your hand in the chat saying, I would like to present. And I will give you all co-host permission so you can present your slides when it's.
I submitted it.
Well, we've, one of our staffers is submitting folks now, so
Okay.
from behind the scenes.
Is she gonna manage that?
We'll probably need to manage chat here just because it'll be dynamic, and so I'll keep an eye on it, if everyone else does as well too. I think Aaron, you were gonna do that, right, chat?
Yep.
Aaron's chat monitor.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Nancy.
Scribble it on the board too, right?
Love it.
So,
Yeah.
When they move this table, then you can have a little more.
All right, we're getting close here. What a cool group of people. Fun to see everybody here. And did they come into my inbox as well? Your slides? Make sure we get them, Pat.
Yep, I've got them. So Pat, I've got your slides. Thank you. Okay, we'll get rolling here in just a minute.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, how are you guys doing? Sorry I'm a little late.
Good morning. We have coffee in the back too, the coffee and what?
Hello.
All right.
Emily, would you please give Jason and Joe co-hosting permissions? Again, if anyone has any slides to share, please drop that in the chat and we will give you co-hosting permissions so you can share those when it's time.
Yeah, lights on or off, you guys want? You can turn them down a
I was
little
gonna
bit.
try to tone them down a little bit, but that's, oh, I.
I turned that one on.
Yeah, try that one. Okay.
Well, and they'll pick you up there at that promotion.
Remember they were there.
That too dark? Probably.
Yeah, let's leave. Oh, I'm fine with them on.
Okay.
I think right now we have 31 folks.
The main parts.
Yeah. All right, we got 31 folks. We're rolling.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. Just a quick check. I think folks are able to hear us in here all right. I think I got some. Just give me a thumbs up in the over in the on your script cameras there, if you would. Cool. We've seen a couple of thumbs up there. I will apologize just to start off with it's managing Zoom meetings when you're not sitting in front of your computer is a bit of a challenge. So we got a bit of a team here helping out. So Aaron's going to be monitoring the chat. We have Emily Swindell with MSI staff also helping out, taking notes and admitting folks. And then Shauna with Plata County EOC is also here taking some notes and a really cool platform they're going to share with y'all shortly. So we got a lot of co-hosts, so if something fails, the meeting will keep going. I just not really sure where I'm actually right now, so I'm gonna kind of look off that. The camera, I think, really will follow me. Anyway, and again, my big apologies for kind of shifting this last minute to a mostly fully Zoom meeting. We're having some space issues here in this facility. And really, we're having a hard time figuring out like, well, who can actually be here in person? And so with that, and knowing that we have our wonderful new Omicron variant of COVID out there in the world, hopefully we're all vaccinated and boosted, but regardless, there's still a lot of unknowns. We just want to make sure we're having a safe and productive conversation today. And so another big thank you to all of you who provided input into the content of this meeting today. And a big thanks to Aaron and Barbara. Barbara's online, Marcia's right here. Aaron and Marcia here for kind of getting this idea together and helping kind of pull us all together for this conversation today. So really our objectives today are to get a better understanding of who we are. There's a lot of new initiatives. There's a lot of pieces moving in this county when it comes to forest health, forest mitigation, fuels mitigation work, community protection work. There is and will be a lot of resources coming into our community. And so what are we all doing? And really, how can we all come together to really work together to get toward that common goal, that common vision of a health, safe, resilient La Plata County. Kind of determining what we're working on, thinking through what our needs are for future engagement, and to really identify the opportunities and gaps that we have within our community for said engagement. So we'll dive into introductions here in a second, but before that, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron and Marcia for a couple of words from their points of view, and then we'll go on.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, 1 second, Aaron. If you're not muted, please mute, just for background noise's sake. And if you do want to present to the group, you can either ask a question in the chat, Aaron will be monitoring that, or raise your hand Zoom style.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And thank you, Anthony. And thanks for all the hard work and pulling this together. And again, I thank you all for being a part of this, helping to think this through, being a part of a great community effort to address forest health and wildfire risk. There's a lot happening here, which is kind of the motivator for this. And we have a great group with Rocky Mountain Restoration Initiative. We have the great group with the Wildfire Advisory Board, with WAP, with the Wildfire Watershed Protection Fund. There's just a lot of interest, a lot of moving parts. And so this conversation was inspired through both RMR, I would say, in conversations with Marcia about where we need to go and how do we bring all the great together so we can work collectively to have the impact in communities and key resources. And so I think we recognize the need, that there's a lot of great activity, and how do we coordinate that to the best of our ability? And so this is a conversation, I think, that hopefully all of you not hopefully, knowingly, all of you are doing great work. We want to hear about it. We want to be able to knit these together in the best way possible. And so thank you all for taking the time to be here. We also appreciate your flexibility, as Anthony said, knowing that we had to shift to the Zoom, understanding we have a couple of core folks who are kind of the mission control here for this meeting, which is pretty impressive if you actually sit in the room and see what Shauna and Allison have pulled together and a few other things. So thank you for that. But really appreciate the conversation today. I think this will be the first of other meetings. I think this is just the beginning. And I think we're really looking here today to talk through who are we, what are we doing on the landscape, where are we going from here, and then and thinking through how we can, as I said, work together to really have a collective impact. And we are benefiting from initiatives in this region like the Rocky Mountain Restoration Initiative, like all the private land work that's happening, like the CFLRPs that should be coming our way. So getting this in place so that we can really put that to the most effective use on the landscape is really, really impressive. So thank you.
I think you're a hard act to follow, Aaron. I don't know what I can add. Marcia Porter Norton, La Plata County Commissioner. Everybody on this call, first of all, I also want to thank you for being here. It's a time of year where everybody's probably a bit stressed out. Not only are we still in a global pandemic, but it's the holidays coming up. And I just appreciate, and I think seeing how many people are on this call shows all of our collective commitment to forest health, to wildfire safety, and to working together. So I can't thank you for taking the time. I want to specifically thank MSI. This is one of those deals where this idea kind of came up of we keep calling it like a, and then to have Anthony and Aaron follow suit to actually make it happen. And these things, as we know, don't happen magically. So I really appreciate it and appreciate the flexibility and totally support this being mostly a Zoom meeting in the era we're living in with the variants out there. So one of the things that came out of our WWPF work, which we'll talk about in a second, is this idea, and I think I'm going to credit Chief Hal Shepard for saying this, is this idea, and again, we're focusing on La Plata County today. I want to acknowledge that some of you work regionally, and so where we can have some crosswork regionally, I think that's awesome across our other counties. We know wildfire affects all of us in Southwest Colorado. But Chief Shepard said something in one of our meetings leading up to forming the WWPF, and he said, can we have one map and one grand scheme? And we know lots of players working on that map, whether it's RMRI, CFLRP, local homeowner associations, Wildfire Adapted, City of Durango, Upper Pine, all the other districts out there. But it really stuck in my head of how do we get there? And then the more I learned and the more I talked about it, it was like, wow, we actually can get there. It doesn't mean that there's one central processing unit doing all the work, but it means that we're coordinating and collaborating. So that came out. Also, Aaron sent out a map, and you're going to have to refresh me the source, but La Plata County specifically, our area, is called out at the state level as being leaders, and that is because of all of you. We are very well positioned to go after big grants. Not $5,000 grants, but multi-million-dollar, I hope, grants from the federal infrastructure package, possibly the Build Back Better, and then state funding. The way that very strict of getting the level of at the pace and scale needed is exactly what we're doing today. Is we work together, we have a common, and you know, we're all going to have pieces of it. It's okay if you have the nonprofit sector and the government sector and the EOC sector. It's fine that we're all working in different ways. The Colorado State Forest Service, I see Mark on here. So, but by having a coordinated and communicated approach, I think we can be really strategic. We all know this. I'm kind of talking to the choir here, that we can be strategic to get those dollars. And that is really, really, really important. So I'm not going to be able to add much than what I have said and Aaron and Anthony have said, but thank you, everybody. It's again, busy time of year, and I just appreciate really sitting here listening. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Aaron and Marcia. Back over. Oh, cool, I still have that up there. Sorry, I have like multiple screens showing like the same thing, but they're actually different. So kind of our flow today is really three parts for the meeting, and my full part. The first part is kind of getting a get to know you session of who we are and what we're doing. The kind of individual organizational level to the initiative level. So we've kind of broken that into two parts. And we'll do a kind of a round robin for the first component. And then for the second component, we have kind of a lot of time for the initiatives. The second component, or the second part of this meeting, is what are the opportunities that we have to work together. And so if you look at the agenda, hopefully all of you have a copy of that. There's some ideas that we've come up in conversation, over the last, year, 2 years now, of some ideas where we think we have some, opportunities. But what are the opportunities that we have? And so we'll make some time to, dive into these topics or other topics that you all would like to discuss. And then our third part of the meeting really is, where are we going from here? What are our next steps? Are we going to meet again as this group? We're going to have subgroups. Are we going to, take initiatives on within each of our unique entities? et cetera. So, but to start off with, thought we'd do a quick round of introductions. Let me stop sharing here. Get my mouse is being really finicky. Apologies, one moment. And would you mind muting yourself? I'll mute you for you. There you go. Yeah, if you're not muted, please mute until it's your time to go to speak, just because to kind of minimize some background noise. And I will apologize too. At some point, Aaron is going to unclick his mute button, and we're going to get like echo chamber going on here. So be forewarned. So let's do a quick round of introductions, and I'll call you out in kind of the order of that I have here, and we'll really brief who you are, who you're with, and what value you're representing with the organization or entity or business that you're speaking to today, or you as a person. So what value, in terms of community, forest health, community resilience, et cetera, that you're representing within your capacity on this call. And so I'll start. My name is Anthony Culpepper. I'm with Mountain Studies Institute and also the coordinator for the Four Rivers Resilient Forest Collaborative here, which many of y'all are partners within. And I guess my value that I'm representing is to kind of get meta with this meta meeting concept. I guess my job is to represent all of y'all's values and to synthesize all of y'all's values. And so that's where I stand with my values for this meeting. Let's see, we'll kind of do a little popcorn here. We'll do a person on Zoom and a person in the room. So the next person I have up in the list here is Jason Lahan.
Hi, everyone. Jason Lahan. I'm with the San Juan National Forest. I'm the coordinator for the Rocky Mountain Restoration Initiative and the Collaborative Forest Landscape Restoration Program for the Forest Service side. I, similar to Anthony, consider myself kind of in that integrator, convener category in terms of looking at the big picture and how do we really work together to amplify all of our work and really achieve bigger outcomes that we couldn't do alone.
Thanks, Jason. Allison.
Good morning. This is Allison Lehman. I am a land use planner for La Plata. I'll try and speak up. Thanks, Carla. This is Allison Lehman. I am a land use planner for La Plata County. And also as part of my role in the county, I help to coordinate what's called the Wildfire Advisory Board. I'll be speaking with you all about today. And the goals I'm really focused on coordinated efforts throughout the county.
Thanks, Allison. Joe Redden.
Good morning, folks. Joe Redden, and I'm with the Association of Consulting Foresters. I have my own consulting company here in Durango. There are 3 other consulting foresters that are on. Our values, and I will speak collectively for my colleagues, our values are the clients of the non-industrial private forest land and trying to assess and provide good, excellent, outstanding forest management.
Thank you, Joe. Let's go with Shauna.
Good morning, I'm Shauna Lagarza. I'm Director of Emergency Management for the Plata County, and my values for contributing to this is just to help be a good communicator, collaborator, and coordinator with some of the experience that I've had in the past. So happy to be here and happy to help.
Thank you, Shauna, and big thanks to La Plata USC for providing the space and technology for us today.
Welcome.
Let's see, who's next on the list? Lo.
There it goes. Hey, good morning, everybody. Lo Williams, San Juan National Forest Partnership Coordinator. And I'll echo what Jason said. I'm here with a great interest in the big picture and in the partnerships that we're developing. Good to see everybody.
Thank you, Lo. Aaron.
Good morning, everybody. Aaron Kimple. I'm the Director of Forest Programs at Mountain Studies Institute. I'm also on the steering committee for the Rocky Mountain Restoration Initiative here in Southwest Colorado, and work with the collaboratives across the San Juan National Forest. Thank you all.
Thanks, Aaron. Adrian.
Good morning, everybody. Adrian Archuleta with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, the area wildlife manager based out of Durango. And I'm here to also a member of the steering committee, but I'm here to represent wildlife populations, habitat. It's both terrestrial and aquatic, but also, wildlife related and other forms of outdoor recreation. We do own some land in state wildlife areas adjacent to the community of Durango. So also important to be a good neighbor and protect communities and watersheds.
Thank you, Adrian. Let's see, Marcia.
Oh, okay. Oops. Marcia Porter Norton again.
I muted you.
Okay, sorry. I guess the value that I'm really bringing here is twofold. One is, as a government, our mission, number one on all our goal list is health, safety, and welfare of people and the citizens in the county. The second value I bring is forest health and looking at the natural values such as watersheds and all of that. And then the third value that I would like to bring is collaboration, which I already mentioned. Thanks.
Thank you, Marcia. Amy.
I'm Amy Schwartzbach with the City of Durango. I'm the Natural Resources Manager. I serve on the RMRI Steering Committee representing recreation and focusing efforts currently on fire mitigation on city-owned land within city limits, very much in partnership with our adjacent federal land managers and educating adjacent private homeowners on why the work on the mountain parks right behind their houses is so important.
Thank you, Amy. Let's see. Who is
Scott.
Scott.
Good morning, Scott Nielsen, Durango Fire Protection District, Wildland Coordinator for our seasonal and full-time wildland staff.
Thank you, Scott. And values.
Values are just support our community and provide initial attack and fire suppression within our district and support our other local and federal partners.
Thank you, Scott. Andy.
Andy Hawk, Timber Age Systems. We're a local wood utilizer.
All right, thanks, Andy. Let's see, Rob, since you're here.
Yes, I'm here. I'm Rob Perino. I work for Shauna here at the EOC for Plata County as Emergency Management Coordinator. I do have a forestry degree. Always loved working in the forest and for the forest, and excited about all the potential grant opportunities and the opportunity to help facilitate and do whatever I can to support the mission.
Thank you, Rob. Ashley.
Morning, everyone. My name is Ashley Downing. I'm the Executive Director of Wildfire Adapted Partnership. And the values that we bring are the perspective of the private landowners on both an individual parcel level and community adaptation for wildfire. Thanks.
Thank you, Ashley. Let's see, Barbara.
Good morning, Barbara Noseworthy, Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Durango. And along with Melissa Youssef, I worked with Aaron and Marcia, and prior to that, Alan Roberts on the creation of the Wildfire Watershed Protection Fund. I'd say the values that we bring to it is a commitment to the quality of life in the area and the resiliency of our community. And we do that through collaboration, which I think is demonstrated in this partnership with the county, the city, and the fire district.
Barbara, Bruce Short.
Hi, I'm Bruce Short, and member of Association of Consulting Foresters, have my own consulting forestry business and been active in the Four Corners area since about 2008. My values are basically to protect the individual landowner properties and the landscapes as a whole, both in terms of wildfire, but also in terms of forest health. And that's what we've been doing as an organization of Association of Consulting Foresters as well.
Thank you, Bruce. Carrie.
I'm guessing you're meaning Carrie Newman. Good morning, everybody. I'm Carrie Newman. I am an ex officio member of the Wildfire Advisory Board representing San Juan National Forest. And the values I want to bring to this group are resilient landscapes through shared stewardship, fire-adapted communities, and effective wildfire response. And my goal, if I can contribute, is to ensure that we are all collectively working towards those values together.
So thank you, Carrie. I order. So here's y'all bop around as people talk. Clara.
Yeah, morning all. Clara Moulton, Four Corners Director with Southwest Conservation Corps, based out of our Durango region. And the values I'm showing up with today is empowerment of our youth and young adults, specifically related to communities and ecosystems. Happy to be here. Oh, and Kevin Heiner is going to be joining. He's just a little late, so he'll be hopping on later.
All right, thanks, Clara. Let's see. Dan.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dan Armitano. I'm a planner with the City of Durango Community Development Department, and I also sit on the La Plata County Wildfire Advisory Board. And kind of my perspective and values on this is really kind of looking at how land use codes can be used to help mitigate potential impacts of wildfire on both new and existing development in the city and the county.
Dan, let's shift over to Danny Margolis. Danny, are you there? All right, we'll skip Danny for now. I think for folks who don't know Danny, Danny is the coordinator for the Dolores Watershed Resilient Forest Collaborative, focused over in Montezuma and Dolores counties, and also kind of serves as the same kind of role that folks like myself and Aaron do as far as convening folks in good conversations like this. Debbie. Debbie, we can see a green outline on your box there, but we can't hear anything. So if you're having technical issues, just drop in the chat box, who you are here with and what your values are. So we'll shift over to, I think, is that Corolla Hanks there?
Yeah, it is. My name is Corolla Hanks. I represent the state of Colorado Fire Commission's Wildfire Urban Interface Group, the WAB, the Wildfire Advisory Board, representing the fire districts there. And then I'm work for Durango Fire Protection District. My real values in working on all this really are about developing resiliency within our community to protect and preserve, as well as all the collaboration, which everybody is committed to.
Thank you, Corolla. Looks like I missed you there. Dwayne Nelson.
Yeah, hi, my name is Dwayne Nelson. I'm with the Wildfire Advisory Board. Basic effort here is to advise the county commissioners that their request regarding fire resiliency issues. Personally committed to fire resilient landscapes, fire adapted communities, and collaborative efforts to do so.
Thank you. Debbie Lee. So Debbie says she's happy to be here. She's with the WAB and looking forward to working with this group. James Semino.
Good morning, everyone. I'm James Semino. I'm normally the district ranger for the Columbine Ranger District. And I guess the values I bring is as that land manager that manages the Forest Service lands all around La Plata County, it's making sure that we are doing it in a collaborative effort where it makes sense, and then making sure that it's there for future generations too.
Thank you, James. And for those that don't know, James is still here, but off in New Hampshire right now. So, virtual detailing is that's going to be fascinating. Let's see. Now we're bobbing around. Jesse Ramirez. Jesse, it's been a while.
Morning, everybody. My name is Jesse Ramirez. I'm a private consulting forester, land manager, and a candidate member of ACF. And values that I bring are working towards treatment connectivity in Southwest Colorado that will lead to a more resilient forest and communities. Thanks.
Thank you, Jesse. John.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Gotcha, John.
Hi, I'm John Frisch. I own Homestead Fire Mitigation. I provide training and services mostly to private landowners with fuels management. I've got 30 years experience in fuels, fire, and logistics management. I serve on the Wildfire Advisory Board. And I guess I'm for the ethical stewardship for resilient landscapes. And I like to keep in mind firefighter safety within the wildland urban interface.
So thank you, John. Kara.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kara Chadwick. I'm the Forest Supervisor for the San Juan National Forest. And as the San Juan National Forest, I represent the full range of natural resource values. Really excited about this meeting and excited about the collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. Kyle.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kyle O'Neill. I'm a forester with the NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Service. So the values that we bring probably are making more resilient forests on private lands, working with these collaboratives and trying to have a shared message on forest resilience, especially in dry mixed conifer forests. Thanks.
Wow. Lindsay.
Everyone, Lindsay Hansen. I am the Renewable Resource Staff Officer on the San Juan, and the values I am representing are our natural resource programs on the San Juan. That includes timber and fuels, watershed, and all of the values you all are so interested in. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you, Lindsay. Marilyn.
Are you asking Marilyn McCord?
I'm asking Marilyn McCord.
Okay, I live at Vallecito and am working on fuels reductions projects. I'm also a member of the Wildfire Advisory Board.
Thank you, Marilyn. Let's see, Mark Lovell.
Good morning. I'm Mark Lovell. I'm the supervisory forester for the Colorado State Forest Service office in Durango. Our primary emphasis is working with private landowners and private lands as well as state lands, really our big thing, and my big thing is working just like a lot of you with partnerships. I'm on the RMRI steering committee as well as the Wildfire Advisory Board.
Thank you, Mark. Mark is already gone. Nick Olson.
Good morning, all. My name is Nick Olson. Along with Clara Moulton and Kevin Heiner, I work for Southwest Conservation Corps. I'm the Forest Health Program Manager, and I'm also come with a second hat today as a board member of the Southwest Education Collaborative. In both those capacities, I'm hoping to bring the values of our youth and young adults and providing opportunities for them to develop as conservation leaders and practitioners in our community.
Thank you, Nick. Pat Dorsey.
Anthony, thanks for pulling this meeting together. I'm Pat Dorsey. I'm with the National Wild Turkey Federation. I'm part of the Southwest Steering Committee. And the National Wild Turkey Federation understands that healthy watersheds, healthy communities, and healthy habitats, healthy forests, lead to healthy wildlife populations. I also live here, and I want to be a good community member. I live in the Wooey.
Thank you, Pat. Ron Duvall.
Yes, good morning. My name is Ron Duvall. I'm a member of the Plata County WAB and a candidate member of the Association of Consulting Foresters. And what I'm interested in, what I bring to the table is interest in resilient landscapes and working across all the federal, state, and private lands in Southwest Colorado, and very interested in integrating HOA's efforts into the bigger picture. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, it looks like Steve Wolf.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Steve Wolf. I'm with Southwestern Water Conservation District. I guess I represent the water resources, both in a quantity and a quality perspective, which I think is an integral to forest health. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And looks like last on my list here is Chief Evans.
Chief Evans, Upper Pine River Fire Protection District. What we bring value-wise is part of the overall community risk reduction strategy that most of this collaboration should fall under that umbrella, which I'm pleased to see it happen. And hopefully we get this going on a larger landscape basis. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Did I miss anybody?
Andy Hawk.
Anyone?
Oh, we did?
Yep.
Oh, he did go.
Did I miss anybody?
I did, Aaron. I was very brief.
You were good.
I was going for brevity.
It's not that I missed you, but I missed you.
So let's circle back. Danny, are you there now?
I'm here now. Apologies about that. I am Danny Margolis, the coordinator for the Dolores Watershed Resilient Forest Collaborative in Montezuma and Dolores counties. And I'm sitting in to listen to all of your values in this process, and I'm really interested to hear it. We share obviously borders, and so developing kind of shared priorities that span a larger area is going to be really valuable. So
awesome. Thank you, Danny. Great. So I'm going to shift back over to, so Aaron, if you monitor the chat now, because I'm going to be turning that away on my screen. Shift back over to our agenda. So the next sort of component of our conversation today is really to dig into what we're all doing on the ground. And so I did jot some notes down from our values. And if we're to make a big word cloud out of that, resilience would be the #1 word. That's my kind of like, very quick word cloudy in my mind thing. From that resilience, community, mitigation, restoration, like those are the words that really pop up in our heads. And that's really what a lot of us are doing on the ground. And so what we would like to do with this section, because there's a lot of new faces on the line today. We have our Wildfire Advisory Board members and other members from our community who haven't been engaged in the same conversations that, a number of us have been engaged with for quite a while now. And so breaking this out and thinking about time here, what I'd like to do is shift a little bit and shift to our initiatives first, And then we'll shift over to our individual groups and organizations, because really it's our initiatives, to where a lot of the, questions are happening as far as like who's doing what are these initiatives, what are they engaged in. And so I've got a couple of prompts here. If you have something prepared to show us, we've made co-host for a few of y'all already. But if you'd like to present a map or some figures or something, just let us know and I'll make you a co-host when it's your time to go. But really, we're going to think about what are the areas of resilience you're focused on? What are the key geographic areas that you're either focused on or already working on or planning to work on for your initiatives or organizations? What's sort of the scope and the vision really for, and this is more for the initiatives, but also for all of us, like to articulate what is our vision for our community? Like, are you collecting monitoring data? Are you tracking metrics and have metrics of success for your projects? And what do you hope that this group here can accomplish? And so behind the scenes, Shauna over here is going to be taking a lot of cool notes in a mind map we've got going, and we'll share that with you all when we shift over to our second part. But we're kind of recording that and mapping that out, how we're making a bunch of connections amongst our initiatives and our organizations. So I'm going to scroll down just for a second here to organizations. And just want to kind of float with the group here. Are there other initiatives that we should be talking about that folks are that want to represent today? So kind of the five big ones that we've kind of pulled out are the CFLRP, which is kind of a nebulous one still at this point, although we do have some clear direction, at least for the first couple of years of it. The Southwest Colorado RMRI, and so Jason and Pat, and we have a bunch of steering committee members on the line today to speak about that. We also have the San Juan National Forest, and I would sort of ask to, I think, Jason, I'll let you kind of tackle the start of that to determine how you want to break out CFLRP and RMRI with the San Juan, plus everything else that San Juan is doing. We have our Wildfire Advisory Board, and then we have the Wildfire Watershed Protection Fund. And so we have, those are because of big initiatives at hand. Are there other initiatives that we should be aware of that we want to block some time for today? Bruce, you got your hand up.
Yeah, one of the things that we need to talk about is EQIP, and that, it's through the Farm Bill. So there's been quite a bit of additional interest in EQIP and additional monies coming down. And I believe there's also additional monies coming down through the latest administration initiative as well. So that's where a lot of our landowners are able to get cost assistance without going through the grant process.
Hey, Bruce. Yeah, EQIP is certainly a great program that a lot of community members have used and will continue. You're correct. There is an influx of resources to that. I'm going to put EQIP into kind of a parking lot area right now. And if we don't get to it, please bring it back up when we get into part 2, if that's okay with you.
And then Carrie Newman typed in the chat box, fire adapted Durango partnerships. And yeah, I agree with Anthony. We have James Simino put in joint chiefs. I think that's, those are kind of some funding strategy we might explore as we get beyond just these initial introductions.
Okay. So I guess to start with, since I have your PowerPoint or your slides already teed up here, Pat, let's start with RMRI. Only because I have that ready to go here. And then we'll shift from RMRI, we'll shift into Jason. I'll shift over to you with Forest Service specific kind of things. And then
Jason has requested we start with Kara at San Juan National Forest, and then they'll go into CFLRP, and then Jason will do CFLRP, and then Pat will do RMRI.
Sounds good. So with that, Kara, looks like you're teed up here.
All right, thanks. Thanks for being flexible on that. So good morning again, everyone. I'm Kara Chadwick, Forest Supervisor for the San Juan National Forest. I really wish that we could all be in person, but I know we all know what times we're in. So I just want to say, give a big thanks to MSI and the county for setting up this meeting. It's really timely, and in my opinion, it's much needed. we've got a lot of work going on down here in Southwest Colorado. And, you know, I think we all need to get together and figure out how to coordinate that. So, you know, by sharing what we're all doing, and then let's take it beyond sharing and let's begin coordinating our efforts so that we can have an even bigger impact down here across our landscapes. We can connect up all our treatments in order to achieve, you know, what everybody's representing here, the fire adapted communities, the reduced severity of fire effects, create resilient landscapes and healthy watersheds, and improve our recreational experiences and improve our local economy. So if we all work together in a coordinated fashion, I really believe we can achieve this. So the forest goal, San Juan National Forest goal, is really to work with all of you to accomplish that over time. And, you know, we know it's going to take some time, but fortunately, our funding, the additional funding we're receiving is for at least a 10-year time frame, and they're all a little bit staggered. So that gives us a big boost in the work we're going to be getting done. So while there's a lot going on across the forest, our main focus, the majority of our forest program of work, is to accomplish these goals and to align our projects with what you all are doing in priority pods and priority areas if we don't have pods. So the additional funding that's been mentioned from initiatives like Rocky Mountain Restoration Initiative and the Colorado or a Collaborative Forest Landscape Restoration Program allows the forest to accomplish more work collaboratively to meet all of those goals. And I feel, at least for the forest, that RMRI was a real motivator for us to be, you know, we collaborated before, but for us to be even more collaborative with all of you and work across boundaries. And I also think it helped to jumpstart these conversations and you know, bring in some additional funding. As Marcia mentioned, there's an additional source of funding in the infrastructure bill that was just passed, and we're pretty excited about that. The Forest Service is set to receive a lot of additional funding. We are the Forest Service nationally and then regionally, we're working on a strategy on how to approach this. And initially, I believe that in 22 funding is focused on the Front Range. However, we should see a boost in funding down here to build our capacity to get more work done. And what's really, really exciting is the money that will go towards non-federal lands, which I think is really needed in this area. So, you know, by working together and showing that we're working across boundary to achieve some pretty big goals and objectives, I think we all have positioned ourselves to be very competitive for that funding. And so the best way really to be successful for all that funding out there is to have a joint communication plan, to work together and to be sure that we're all speaking as one voice around these aligned priorities. So, you know, exciting times down here, and let's work together and make sure these opportunities don't go to waste. So thanks everyone. And again, thanks for setting up this meeting to MSI and the county. And I will hand it back to, is it going back to you, Jason?
Yeah, let's
thanks, Carol.
And Jason, you're set up as a co-host if you want to share that map.
Okay, will do. Let's see if I can get this up. So while this is loading, I just wanted to build on what Kara was saying in terms of, you know, these initiatives that we're talking about today. You know, they're really focused investment strategies. These are really helping us work together to really scale up the pace and scale of what we're, you know, our restoration efforts to mitigate threats to our communities and to our natural resources. I'm going to talk about CFLRP specifically, and then Pat's going to get into the specifics of the Rocky Mountain Restoration Initiative. But really, you know, both of these initiatives started as, you know, part of the idea that we weren't keeping up, right? We've got these fire issues, we've got population growth, we've got increases in demand on our water resources, increased recreation use. And this isn't just a Forest Service issue, this is an all lands issue. no one organization has the resources, the expertise, the funding to solve these problems by themselves. And so how do we work together to invest in places, to develop shared priorities, to develop strategies together where we can bring some of these places up, we can elevate them up. We've seen it in Colorado in 2020. We've seen it over in 2012 in Colorado. We've seen it in California year after year, that we're doing a lot of work, but when it comes to the scale of wildfire, when it comes to the scale of a lot of these threats, we aren't keeping up. And so CFLRP, the Collaborative Forest Landscape Restoration Program, this started about 12 years ago as a means to kind of encourage collaborative science-based restoration in priority forest landscapes. So really encouraging that science-based monitoring, the collaboration, the investment of time with partners to identify these places. And it's a 10-year program. 2 years ago, they just opened up the rounds again. This is a congressionally appropriated funding source, nationally competitive. And 2 years ago, they opened it up after the first kind of 2 rounds of 10 years. And we competed. The partners in this area really stepped up. The collaborative groups, all the partners on this call were probably involved in one way or another, and competed very well. And this was really meant to be a complement to the Rocky Mountain Restoration Initiative, and to be able to bring the resources to the federal land side to really help leverage and build up that capacity to look at kind of the Forest Service side of the boundary in coordination with all the activities that need to happen on private lands, on state lands, and in all those other watersheds and kind of important areas. The funding is up to $3 million a year. And it's really focused on kind of that increasing the pace and scale in the most important places to people. Just some nuts and bolts on this Southwest CFLRP proposal in that round of funding was ranked the #3 project in the country. So it's awesome. I mean, a really exciting time to be here, but even more exciting is that not only did we rank #3 in this landscape, but the eastern side of the forest crossing over into the Rio Grande National Forest, and then the Carson and the Santa Fe in Region 3, they also had a successful proposal that was ranked #2 in the Rio Chama CFLRP. So the San Juan National Forest has the #2 and #3 ranked CFLRP proposals in the country, and those are expected to be funded starting in 22, but it's not a sure thing until we actually get a letter from the Secretary. So that's dependent on federal budgets and that sort of thing. And so once we get that letter from the Secretary, then that becomes more official and we can really start kicking things off. And so I'm really speaking about the program as a whole, but we are starting to kind of get the group together and convene things for the CFLRP program. And that kickoff meeting is on January 12th. And so if anyone on this call hasn't been invited to that and would like to start kind of at the ground level of what the Southwest CFLRP is going to be and how we develop governance and start to move forward, then come join us on January 12th and get engaged. So I think with that, I'm going to pause on the CFLRP and then pass it to Pat Dorsey, who's going to talk about the Rocky Mountain Restoration Initiative. And I guess before I pass it to you, Pat, I did put up a map. I haven't even talked about that. For those that can't zoom in and can't see the text, just to give you, I think spatially, some orientation as to what we're talking about with these big initiatives. When you're looking at the big pink boundary, that's the boundary of the Southwest CFLRP. If you look at that, that encompasses the majority of the San Juan National Forest and then some adjacent lands. If you look at the black dotted boundary to the east, that's the Rio Chama CFLRP. The blue boundary in the middle is the Armorai landscape. And if you see this hashed, this diagonal lines that overlaps with the blue in most places other than here in the kind of in the far western side and the far eastern side, that's the focal area of the CFLRP. So you can see that the alignment of the CFLRP Southwest and Armorai in terms of where we think a lot of the activities are going to be happening is very much aligned and focused in these places. And you're going to learn more about the prioritization and kind of the focal areas of Armorai even within that subset of the landscape here. And we'll be developing more of that information for the CFLRP starting January 12th and beyond. And so now I'll pass it to you, Pat. Thank you.
As we make a transition here, there was a question was asked about how folks find out more about the meeting on the 12th. I think the best thing to do if you didn't get in, if you have received an invite, it would have come from a gentleman named Samuel Wallace from Peak Facilitation, probably 2-ish weeks ago now, I think, was when those invites went out. If you did not receive an invite from Sam and would like to participate in our initial kickoff for the CFLRP governance collaborative, I'm not really sure what we're calling it yet, group, I think the best way to go would be to email me and I can connect you with Sam and get you an invite to that meeting. If you don't know my email, it's pretty simple. It's anthony@mountainstudies.org. And Emily, if you would throw my email into the chat box there. And as we shift over to Pat, I did make you a co-host. So if you want me to, I can bring your slides up or you can share your screen.
Since I'm a technological wizard, Anthony, I'll rely on you if that's all right. And I can do it too, but before we get started, I just wanted to talk a little bit about RMRI briefly, because it originated a little bit different in that it originated outside the community when the administration in August of 2018 launched their shared stewardship strategy. In 2019, RMRI started actually in Nashville, Tennessee, and there were some meetings that led up to that. They were deciding where should we put this. There was a little bit of extra money, about an extra $3 or $4 million per year that's supposed to come to RMRI, additional money to do work on Forest Service land. But it really originated at a higher level and then got pushed out to the community level. A lot of other places wanted it, but they decided on the Rocky Mountain region and ultimately settled on Colorado. I think what's important to understand about the shared stewardship strategy is that I think it's kind of a unique approach for the Forest Service. In fact, it's, in my mind, it's the Forest Service taking a leap of faith that when they hand good people possibilities, they'll do great things. It's about doing the right work in the right places and sharing the responsibility, the priority setting, and also sharing some investment on those properties that are offside of Forest Service land. So RMRI is a national pilot of that shared stewardship strategy. And Anthony, if you could go to the next slide. What we're focused on in RMRI is 4 values that were decided by partners in Colorado. And the 4 values we all agreed on are: communities should be prepared for wildfire. We should have secure, clean drinking water for communities. We should have healthy forests that support wildlife, and that we all need recreation that's sustainable and accessible and inclusive for everyone. And then Jason mentioned I cut off the west side of the RMRI area just to focus on the Durango pods. So the area that we're focusing on in Durango, the orange or the red pods there are our highest priority pods. Or we just had to break the unit up into smaller pieces. Won't spend a lot of time talking about pods right now. And the blue ones are our lower priority pods. What we found is that the red pins are the ones that are our highest priority right now for implementation. So that first red pin you see, Columbine 1 is a West Durango pod and Columbine 40 is an East Durango pod. The West Durango pod ranked #1 for communities, and it also ranked high for recreation and water. So those are pretty important pods. The 3 blue pins that you see there are planning pods that we hope to get to soon in out years. They include the North and South Animus and another East Durango pod. And the white pod that you see there, the white pin, is the Bayfield pod, and that one has a tremendous amount of opportunity. So with that, we can go to the next slide. And
Full screens.
I'll just talk about the vision and scope. So the vision of this is that we're going to focus our efforts to have a real impact on this landscape. The RMRI boundary includes about 750,000 acres. We're trying to treat 310,000 acres over 10 years. You can see the breakdown there of federal and non-federal land. The idea is that if we work together, we can achieve multiple benefits on the landscape. So we can do a wildlife project that's going to produce clean water, or we can do some work around homes and it's going to create some sustainable recreation. So from there, I want to talk just a little bit about accomplishments. And I don't want to give it away, Anthony, if we can go to the next slide, because we're going to have a full-blown accomplishments woohoo meeting on January 13th. And I will tell you all how to get invited to that one too. I'll type it in the chat when I'm all through here. Or Jason, if you want to do that, that would be great. But this is our cumulative acres. Keep in mind that RMRI has only been in implementation stage for 2 years. So the green bars there are what we accomplished in 2020. The yellow bars are what we accomplished in 2021. But you can see that together we've accomplished over 42,000 acres in a 2-year period. Prior to RMRI, we were doing about 40,000 acres in the entire state of Colorado. So I think these numbers are pretty significant. The other thing that the next chart is the percentage toward our goal. And you can see that we're a little low on the federal side, but we've been contending with fires in California and across the West. We've been contending with COVID, so we can't do as much prescribed burning, all of that kind of stuff. But you can see on the private side, they've been knocking it out of the park. So congratulations to Ashley Downing and Mark Lovell and the NRCS and all the folks that are on the line that are doing that work. And if we can go to the next slide. I want to talk about the real accomplishments. And I call these the real accomplishments because we have to talk about acres. Everybody wants to quantify acres, but RMRI is more about impact than it is about acres. And so I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about funding. RMRI, because of the fact that we are all working together, because of the fact that we are collaboratively including all sorts of people in our decision making. What's happened is GOCO Restore funding has lined up with the RMRI boundaries. The Colorado DNR Wildfire Strategic Action Program overlaps with RMRI programs. Marcia, you mentioned the leadership in La Plata County. It's really true. All of that's combined to focus funding here. The Colorado State Forest Service, the NRCS, and the NWTF have added some capacity. And in 2021, the exciting part is what the partners have done, not what the Forest Service and the NWTF has done, but what the partners have done, what the collaboratives have done, and all of the people in this call have done is that in 2021 brought $3 million extra to La Plata County to do this work. Right, or to the RMRI landscape. That's come through EQIP dollars, it's come through GOCO grants, it's come through furworm grants, it's come through BLM community assistance grants. So that's a collaborative effort in and of its own. In 2021, we did 33 projects on private, state, and tribal land that benefited 138 landowners. And in 2021, the San Juan Mountains Association Recreation Ambassadors Program made contact with 3,600 people on trails, telling them about the importance of forest health. So with that, I want to go to my Merry Christmas slide and just say that I look forward to working with everybody on the Wildfire and Watershed Protection Fund, the Wildfire Advisory Board, all of the groups that are here today, and really appreciate MSI again pulling this meeting together.
Thank you, Pat, Jason, and Kara. Before we shift over, do we have any questions for Kara, Pat, or Jason about San Juan overall, CFLRP, or RMRI? And bear in mind, some of these questions we might put in sort of our little parking lot area, and then come back to it when we discuss kind of how we work together and move forward in part 2. But any initial questions or reactions for Kara, Jason, and Pat?
Anthony?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is a parking lot issue, and one of the things that led to this meeting is, yeah, first of all, impressive report outs. Just the minute we think we know what's going on, we have presentations like this, and it reminds me of why this communication is so important, but eventually trying to figure out big parking lot issue is a common map to figure out where, you know, what treatments are planned, what have already been done. That acreage is really important. Where is it? And then where is it in relation to the private? So I know there's a really big amount of complexity in getting that done. But my understanding from having very initial conversations is that it's possible. And there might even be some platforms out there that are, you know, that we don't know about or underutilized, but it would be great in relation to what we're all doing to know where that work is happening. So thank you.
So I can speak to that very briefly, and we can come back to a common map because that is something that we do want to discuss maybe in more detail. That ideally might be a follow-up for the new year with a smaller group of folks. But MSI, Jason with the Forest Service and RMRI, and a couple other partners have been discussing how to bring that map together. And we have some examples and some work. There is some work in progress towards that. And so again, I'd like to express some thank you for those who have provided data to me specifically for that project map, but there'll be a lot more to come on that.
But I do think, yeah, it's a great conversation for next steps, and then and maybe there's a smaller subgroup that comes from here to build that.
Jason or Pat, since we've discussed common mapping too, anything that y'all would like to add into that?
I think that we've been talking about this, you know, for probably 6 months or a year now too, and so we recognize that this is one of the highest priorities that we have, and that there's just a huge opportunity for us all, not just having a shared understanding and kind of operating picture of where we're all working, but when we're talking with these state level funders, these resources, if we're all referencing back to the same map, it's amazing the story it can tell in an instant when you look at we're all using the same map and showing how each other's work is really leveraging each other and really building on each other. And so just ditto that this is extremely important. And I also, Anthony, if it's valuable, I have the kind of a draft map of just, it's rough. It's not what we're talking about here in terms of the strategic map, but it just shows the points of the projects that Pat just mentioned in 2020 and 2021, if that's of interest.
Yeah, let's, since we're talking about it right now, Jason, let's go ahead and take a look at that. And then like I said, we will need to come back to this in our second portion. Jason,
okay, I'll pull it up while Pat goes and others are going. So, but I'll get it coming up.
Hey, Jason. Pat, do you have anything you want to add to the map component?
No, the only thing I would say is that our commissioner nailed it, I think. And Marcia, the other thing I see it really being able to do is let us make strategic decisions, right? Make really good investments moving forward.
Any other questions for Kara, Pat, and Jason on those initiatives? Sorry, my chat box. Any
are you able to see the map now?
We are, Jason.
That is meeting for the January 13th.
So just for because the legend may be difficult to see, the gray squares are the 2020 projects. They aren't delineated by partner, but those are Forest Service and you know, the non-federal partners as well, including CPW, WAP, NRCS, Colorado State Forest Service, City of Durango. And in the colored dots, you can see those are the 2021 projects, with the kind of teal color being represented by the San Juan National Forest. The purple color is the City of Durango, orange, Wildfire Adapted Partners. The light blue is Colorado State Forest Service. The light green is the Bureau of Land Management. Pink is NRCS. Blue, Colorado Parks and Wildlife. Yellow, Montrose Forest Products. So you can see we don't have everyone, but we do have a good cross section. And one of the goals that we have with RMRI, and I think that it's a really perfect time with this meeting to start bringing it together, because we are starting to kind of take the next step into strategy development in these focal places. And again, some of the highest priorities are right here around Durango in La Plata County. It's how do we start to bring these dots together? It's not just that we've gotten the input on where the priorities are, but now how do we bring these strategies and all the work that everyone here is doing so that these dots start to form even tighter and tighter clusters in the areas that we've all identified as a shared priority. So
thank you, Jason.
Hopefully that map is helpful, but it's just a snapshot of kind of what's been done.
Also something I think we'll dive into a whole lot, like in another meeting, we'll be diving into these more.
Correct. And just, kind of for all of our conversation, while Jason's referring to this, the RMRI landscape here, the vision for this map is to be kind of agnostic of initiative and to be, encompassing of, our communities here in Southwest Colorado as a whole. And, one of the good things about having Danny on the line is that because our initiatives are not just in La Plata County, this can be utility for communities outside of our geography here. Any other questions for, Chief Evans, you got your hand up.
Yeah, Jason, I'm kind of curious, and I guess I don't know who I make the request to, but that area that's between 172 and Bayfield that is south of kind of there's a couple of gray squares in there, but on the south side of 160, we've identified that, all that stand of PJ that's between County Road 510 and the US 160 as a, especially with a monsoonal flow in the summer, that the potential for a fire in that stand of PJ along the south side. And I just would love to see that incorporated in the RMI work area and what we have to do to reach out to those private property owners over there, because it, just the thickness of that stand there and the ember cast that's going to come across the highway on a monsoonal flow fire is pretty much going to work its way into a lot of these other high risk areas that are on the north side that have already been identified. So I don't know what we have to do to bring that that kind of white square in that's kind of north east of the airport there into the RMI project work area.
Yeah, thank you for that input. And I think getting that kind of, intel and priority from your perspective is really, important. And what I would emphasize is that just because it's not in this gray boundary, as Anthony mentioned, there's a lot of initiatives coming together. And so knowing where those priorities are, whether or not they're within the RMRI, is really, I think we're trying to look at this landscape as a whole. And it's just going to be different kind of funding and different categories of how we get there. But really, this is about, the landscape that is Southwest Colorado, not just kind of what's in this gray when we're talking about all of these pieces and how they fit together. So I think that there will be opportunities there, and whether or not we would, specifically target it within RMRI.
Great. Thank you for that, Chief Evans.
Yeah, let's shift on. So next up, let's shift over to the Wildfire Advisory Board. And I'm not sure who is presenting from the Wildfire Advisory Board. Allison, is that going to be you?
Yeah.
Allison looks very cozy in jackets and
She brought her all the blankets from home.
You're all lucky you're at home. I'm sure it's warmer. Okay. This is Allison Lehman. I'm going to begin with background on the Wildfire Advisory Board. So for those of you who are familiar, I apologize for repeating info. But then I promised I'm getting into a bunch of new stuff on what the board's working on. That'll be exciting. So in the year 2020, La Plata County participated in a grant program, Community Planning Assistance for Wildfire, or CPA. And out of that effort, there was a stakeholder group and a final report that was created that was presented to the Board of County Commissioners. As a result, in 2021, in March 2021, the Board of County Commissioners adopted a Wildfire Advisory Board. And among many things, the board is intended to help inform wildfire kind of preparedness, decision-making, encourage efforts that the county can pursue as endorsed by the Board of County Commissioners. Following the board creation in March, there was a call for applicants, and that was open to the public for citizens of Plata County or residents of Plata County. And there were 10 who were selected. Most of them are on here today, as well as the 4 ex officio spaces. So of the 14-member group, there are 4 non-voting members represented by Durango Fire, Los Pinos Fire, the San Juan National Forest, and then the Colorado State Forest Service. And we are starting to meet. We're starting to get momentum. We have a lot of questions. So this meeting was perfect timing. As I think I mentioned a moment ago, many of the Wildfire Advisory Board members are on the meeting today. So we're honored to be part of this conversation. And chances are that you may be hearing as follow-up from some of the individual members as we're working on research and creating recommendations that we'll be bringing to the Board of County Commissioners. So that's where I'm going to segue into new content. So the thing to understand is that this new content is not yet shared with the Board of County Commissioners. As we're developing it and as we're doing our research, as I was just referring to, having this conversation, starting this conversation is part of that. So Marcia, thanks for being here.
I have my ears closed.
So one of the first initiatives, I'll back up really quickly and say, because there's so many things that the Wildfire Advisory Board would like to tackle, we've started by dividing into 3 subcommittees. Those subcommittees are mitigation, land use code, and education and community outreach. The mitigation committee, one of their first focuses is on pursuing a memorandum of understanding. This MOU is something that what we would hope would do is include everyone who's part of this group today. All of you sitting on this Zoom meeting would potentially be signing and recognizing that we as organizations and agencies who are working in La Plata County want to take a united stance to pursue wildfire mitigation. That we want to do what it takes to support each other, support the community, invest in safe practices and ecosystem health, and with the use of prescribed fire and other mechanisms that will help to promote wildfire mitigation in La Plata County. So that is almost like a launching point. We look at this as a way of taking the shared approach, and it's really only the start of the conversation. But one thing that it can nicely do is start the conversation, get public excited, get people involved with thinking about completing wildfire mitigation on their own. Our next thoughts include creating what's called a Resiliency Hub. This would be an online resource that would take the map and make that available to everybody. It would take statistics like what Pat showed so that people know what is being accomplished and have that as additional momentum to say, wow, look at everyone else who's doing mitigation. I should be doing this too. Getting resources available to people, so tying them into Wildfire Adaptive Partnership, tying them into the resources through Colorado State Forest Service, NRCS, as well as helping them find mitigation contractors. So the idea would be, in addition to being this great public-facing resource, it would also be a tool for all of us who are participating, who have these initiatives. And as we brought up on many occasions today, we need to maximize our efforts. If we're working in one area, we don't know that unless we're communicating that. And this is one opportunity to do that, to say, this is where mitigation is going to occur or is occurring. Who else is in this area that can leverage what we're doing and increase the volume of work that's getting done? That's a kind of a quick glimpse at the hub. So all these things are pretty dependent on what we're calling a coordinated communications plan. Until we all leave our own vacuums where we're kind of thinking of our individual projects and what we've been focusing on, we're missing a large part of the picture, which is tying together our efforts as well as the efforts of community members on private land and other lands that we haven't identified in some of the maps you've already seen today. So taking a deeper dive into that, one of the things that the Wildfire Advisory Board is looking at is called TELI. And if you want to look up this website, it's called engaginglandowners.com. There is an engagement guide, and this guidebook is, well, it's huge. It's about 90 pages, but there are instructions for people, so that our idea would be to start with the beginning chapters where it's really coordinating our group here or subcommittee and getting some basic goals, and then from there beginning that outreach and making everything that we're doing more public facing and get more community support, as well as the momentum that gets members of the community doing work themselves. Finally, that gets me to potentially a touchy one, but something that is long needed in La Plata County, which is looking at land use code as it prepares for wildfire, which is inevitable in our area. We do have a subcommittee that's focused on preparing amendments to the La Plata County Land Use Code. Those amendments will start to be crafted this year, and there will be a lot of effort into making what's realistic and practical for La Plata County, but not being in denial of the fact that we need efforts like this in order to be prepared. I hope I touched on everything. That's my quick summary, and happy to answer questions.
Yes, any questions for Allison and the Wildfire Advisory Board? And I want to express a big thank you for all of y'all being here today.
Yeah, it's great to have everyone on. Thank you. Any questions?
In the chat, Pat, let's see, we put the link to the engaginglandowners.org into the chat, and then Pat Dorsey had said we would be happy to add everyone on the web to the RMRI mailing list. If you're interested, please type your name and email in the chat.
Thanks. Okay, great. Good job, everybody.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Allison.
Allison. And then last for our initiatives, let's shift over to the go ahead, Eric, because I always get the acronym
The
wrong.
Wildfire Watershed Protection Fund. And Barbara, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I'll get started and then I'll have anybody else jump in. So I'm Barb Noseworthy. I'm the Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Durango. And just from a personal point of view, when I was running as a candidate, one of my platform issues was on climate change and creating a resilient community. And I often talk about saying, I don't want Durango or the surrounding area to look like Paradise, California, or Greenville, California, and really pushing that we put resources both at the city level and larger area, the county and the regional area, into mitigation. And then I also recognize that mitigation is essential for our watershed as well, protection. So the Wildfire and Watershed Protection Fund was kind of it was very much an outgrowth of the work that Aaron and Ellen Roberts and others did to create the Southwest Impact Fund, the vision for that. And we looked at it and realized that we needed to adapt it to really fit what would work in the county, and that it was really important to our constituents, particularly in leveraging other dollars from the municipality and the county, to do a proof of concept. So we started in June, I believe it was, with a working group, Melissa Youssef and myself from the county, or from the city, Marcia from the county, and we insisted that we needed the fire districts, at least one at the table, and Hal, Chief Doherty came in early, very on, from day one, and worked with us to create what has since become an intergovernmental agreement between the three parties. We've all put in resources. The city put in $100,000 last summer to help get us started. It's in our budget. We have additional funds in our budget for the coming year. The county is also putting in money in their 2022 budget and have covered some costs. And the fire district will be making a significant amount of in-kind donations. So we're working in that regard together with resources. We will be hiring, and under this county's leadership, and Shauna Lagarza is our main point person on this, but we'll be hiring someone. The ad will be going out in January, a coordinator who thinks about this project every day and working to just keep working to make this private investments in mitigation come together. We are focused on private mitigation. We have a few projects that are underway or will be starting. We're deeply concerned about the western, particularly Hal has spoken about the western part of the county with the prevailing winds, how that could impact all of us. So I believe we're working, he's working, and Corolla, if I missed something, please jump in as well, on the areas around Rafter J, particularly when we have only a one-way avenue in and out, same way. So what are some options there? And then with Aaron's work and MSI's work, we have what was a $300,000 grant, which is turning into a $500,000 grant to work on mitigation in the Florida watershed area. And that will, again, be led by the fire district within this, but as a coordinating body. And I know, Aaron, you might have some more updates on that, but we're working on the metrics of that and how to bring it about. So our biggest issue, I would say, is that we recognize that it doesn't matter where the fire starts, it impacts all of us, which is why the city has its own actions that, you know, Amy is leading, but we're willing to invest resources, financial resources, into protecting the larger area. And I would end by saying that we recognize this is a small start. It's a proof of concept, but we see the potential very soon of increasing the pace and expanding the scale of this work. And again, I would emphasize Marcia's comments. I often describe it as we've created these patches of mitigation effort, but what we really need to do is stitch the patches all together to make a quilt. And so I too want to emphasize the need for that data, for that map, so we can see where what's missing, where the gaps are, and how we can prioritize our actions that will have the greatest impact. I do want to give Marcia or Corolla or Shauna a chance to speak if I've missed anything. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. And I really want to emphasize, because we have people from all over La Plata County on this call, that the idea of proof of concept is very important. And I really also want to thank former Senator Ellen Roberts and MSI for prompting these conversations dating back to, I think, 19, about what was known at that time as the SWIFT project, and it's adapted, which is what we're all, I think, needing to do. So just a couple things. I think we want to be very clear that we don't want to be duplicative of what anybody is doing, including the county's own WAB or the city's Wildfire Adapted Partnership, or what anybody's doing out there. We want to complement, we want to meld. We have this great opportunity for a coordinator who are very able. Shauna Lagarza is going to supervise. And so maybe there's ways that person can, you know, take some of these shared goals and work on them as well. That'll be to be determined. One of the things I think the WWPF does, at least I hope, is bring the political will to the table. When you have a city and a county, and in the future, it could include other partners and other governments in La Plata County, other fire districts for sure. But bringing that political will to the table, please ask us if we're supposed to be on a Zoom or a call, or we need a letter of support by tomorrow kind of thing on grants. You know, I think by having your elected officials so engaged, I hope it only complements what all of you are doing. I've had a couple citizens say, why is La Plata County funding this? And I would simply note that we have over $1 billion at risk in assets in La Plata County. And you all know what those are. I know you map them very well in RMRI, from water treatment facilities to homes and on and on. And I do happen to know, having been in this office for almost a year, that when a wildfire occurs, it is a significant hit on the county budget. It is a significant hit on state and federal budgets. The 416 fire, look at how much energy has had to go in to do the emergency watershed protection program, millions of dollars, and not to mention highway cleanup, private land cleanup. So we see this as an interest in our budgets, as well as safety and all of the 4 values that RMRI put forth, which are our values too. But it's also, just quite frankly, a way to be very careful with when we can prevent something. We're really saving on the taxpayer money. And the last thing I will say is that for all the WAB members out there, thank you so much for your work and for being here. And Allison, thank you for your work. And I am really excited to hear what you have, because I think we need to link action with policy, with central clearinghouse, with landowner education, and all of it. So it's we keep saying stitching together this quilt, and the WAB, having met, I think, since March or something like that, you're really starting to do that, and really thank all of you. I'm speaking in my county commissioner role now. Thank you, all of you, for everything that you're doing. So, you know, I'm all ears. How can we do this, and how can the county help? So, and Aaron, I don't know if you want to say anything. Aaron's been really significantly helpful to us. And I'm not sure the WWPF would have, quite frankly, come together without him, and again, Ellen's work. So do you have anything to say?
Well, just that it was a team effort. And what's really exciting is, while these feel like, or have felt like, disparate efforts, when you start looking at them, the overlap, the opportunity for them to puzzle piece together is incredible. The maps, you know, Jason showed the maps. The areas that the WWPF identified as priority areas were in those high priority pods for the RMRI. The discussions that the WAB are having are exactly the discussions that will help, you know, the WWPF and the WAB can very much work closely together on moving these things forward. We have the key partners here that we've talked about who will help instrument, like Wildfire Adaptive Partners, like the CSFS, like NRCS, and then having the RMRI, the Forest Service folks, having the folks who are going to implement on the ground. This is really exciting to start to bring all these things together. And so really great. And it truly is inspirational to watch our county and our city and our fire departments all invest together in a collective approach, in our community coming together for a collective approach to addressing this issue.
Questions about the WWPF? My dyslexia always wants me to say WWFP, but it's WWPF.
Yeah, you can say it like the WWPF.
One thing I just would add, I think it's important for people to know that when we started talking about this, taking on an entire county, let alone, and I'm sure the RMRI and CFLRP folks can relate to this, it's really overwhelming looking at where are you going to do treatment. And so what we decided to do, again, phase 1 is the Florida River watershed. It's the city's water supply. And there are many, many county subdivisions and residents who live up that way, of course. And I know part of that goes into the Upper Pine Fire District. So of course we'll want to collaborate with Upper Pine. And then the city of Durango, they already, Amy's on the call, have done an excellent job of essentially mitigating eventually around Durango. And then, as Barbara noted, areas west of Durango, including Durango West 1 and 2, the Lightner Creek area, I would like the RMRI folks to know that your work that you did around identifying values helped contribute to where the initial WWPF map is. So if anybody's wondering, where are you working? That's the initial phase 1. And the work will be done, at least initially, by Durango Fire. And they will be providing in-kind, but then the money that is raised and will be resourced and marshaled towards Durango Fire for their crews to be out working. And you saw that they already did Purple Cliffs. So we have a success under our belt. In all transparency, that was already underway, funded by the joint use sales tax. But it's an idea of how we're on the map, we're working, and there's a bunch of partners. So that's our initial landscape. We know there's equal as much risk over in the Pine River Valley and the area that Chief Evans just mentioned. So we're not forgetting about those areas. I always say this landscape we picked out isn't little. There's a lot of acres in it, and it'll be costly to treat. But and again, the burning. I think 5 years ago I wouldn't have said, gosh, could Durango burn down? I think that's not in my mind. And now it is very much in my mind that Durango could burn down. And but every town in the region matters. And so this is where we're focusing our energy to start with.
And Ashley Downing and Wildfire Adaptive Partners is also very instrumental in writing that grant. So
yes, thank you.
So any questions for our WWFP folks here? We're going to do a quick little shift in kind of program order here. After quick questions here, if there are any, we're going to take about a 10-minute break. And then we're going to get back into really the part 1, which I think we're going to spend a lot of time on part 1 today, of what we are as individuals doing on the landscape. Because I think that's a really key component to understanding how we get to our next steps. So with that, any last questions for Marcia, Aaron, or Barbara?
And just to acknowledge that Anthony and Shauna are both capturing some opportunities for next steps in this. What Shauna's got going is super cool. So
looks like that's Barbara in the chat. Any questions? All right, well, with that, let's take a 10-minute break. So it is, well, let's take a little bit less than a 10-minute break. So it's almost 10:40 here. Let's meet back at 10:45.
10:45.
Yeah.
We're gonna go on to mute.
We're gonna be, yep.
Oh my gosh, this is fast.
Hey, right over the door.
You like our tree? I do. In fact, I'm gonna get a picture of that.
Hey, Anthony, are you listening? Are you on?
What's up, Bruce?
Hey, Aaron or Anthony, if you can move me up so I can go right after the break. We've got 2 antibody infusions scheduled, and I'm trying to get to these people before they desat and wind up having to go to the hospitalization issue, and we're short today.
Sorry, Chief, I was on mute there. We'll get you up going next.
Okay.
Oh, I'm so excited. Just
All right, I've got about 1 minute, so if folks are away, please come back. So as we rejoin and kind of re-engage in the conversation here, pull up my prompts here. And so what we're going to do is kind of go around the room and, really talk about where we're working, like what are our key focus areas, what are our geographies within our Plata County grander geography, like what we're actually doing right now, and sort of what's the scope and the vision of the body of the work we have on the ground. I do have a couple of other prompts here about tracking metrics, and success, and monitoring and things like that. Let's put a parking lot for those, just because it's going to take us a bit to get through all of our all the great things that we're doing, because that's a big component of this mapping piece that has been articulated. And so before we dive in, I'm going to have Shauna share her screen and kind of walk us through very briefly the mind map we've got going on for all the great things we're doing. So let me stop sharing here, Shauna. Now stops freaking out.
And just on as Shauna pulls that up, because it is super cool. Just one quick note too, we're kind of thinking pretty big picture right now. We'll have opportunities to dive into the weeds.
Yes.
In future conversations, I think.
Definitely. And so with that, try to be, brevity is awesome, although we have a lot to do. And I do want to acknowledge that all the initiatives that we just talked about, they wouldn't be initiatives without the work that we're all doing on the ground and have been working on for years and years and years now. So Shauna, if you would, please give us a little quick overview of how we're documenting this conversation today.
Yeah, real super quick. So we're just breaking it down into a couple different groups. And when you all were talking about your different values, try to put things in this X mind of what you all talked about. A lot of community risk reduction, protection, and I'm trying to tag things that were multiple times that were said. They're in the green, right? A lot of collaborative efforts, things of that. So working on our values there. When you're all been talking about the mitigation initiatives that we're doing, I went into the Forest Service, you all went first. So on this map of X-Mine, tagging things that how we get the money, right? Where does it come from? X-Mine also can take you out to a website where you can learn more about CFLRP. Building in on that, and then when we were talking about the city and county work that they were doing in CPA, trying to tie some of the CPA things together on different mitigation. Allison mentioned the Rethinking the Land at our outreach, so we can embed some links in there. And so what we eventually want to do as you continue to talk, we'll take some notes, and then you can make different relationships in the X-Mine where things are happening, where they're going. And then as we see what we want to do, what's our list? What do we really need? Here's the parking lot, and we're going to stitch the map together, right? So just trying to really identify what you're saying, document that on this, and have it as a platform that we can continue to use as a visual on that. So that's what we're doing here in the background.
Awesome, thank you, Shauna. And this is the document at some point, once we figure out how the sharing of all this works. I'm brand new to X-Mine as a couple days ago. So this is a great tool. And this is something that I think we would like to, if possible, make sure that we all have access to and can provide input into as we build off of the conversations today.
Absolutely.
So with that, knowing that folks, we do have a few folks that do need to hop off early. If you need to run sooner than later, I know Chief Evans has got a matter to deal with here shortly, so I'm gonna have him go first. If you need to go earlier, I do kind of an alphabetical list in the agenda. It's not comprehensive, everybody that's here. So we'll start there and then have other folks fill in if I haven't captured you yet on that list. If you need to go earlier for whatever reason, please just drop your name in the chat and we'll get you kind of up in the order of things. So with that, let me turn it over to Chief Evans to talk about the great work the Upper Pine is doing.
Right, thank you guys. I apologize for having to cut in line, but we're administering monoclonal antibodies today, and I got 2 patients that are waiting till I'm done with this to get going. So they're, first of all, I just want to start by saying, you know, Shauna, I think that computer program you got running is Santa's going to put some kind of propeller head beanie in your stocking for that. But the existing work that we're doing already is in the Heartwood co-housing development, which we have a Colorado Forestry Service grant that we're working through with Mark on that. We're probably about 50% of the way through the project objectives there. And that will probably consume most of next year's activities by our wildland and our mitigation crews. I wanted to focus on 2 other areas that I think are key. One of them, and Barbara, you mentioned this about paradise in the campfire. And for those that are on the call here, if you're looking for some holiday reading, I would strongly encourage the book Paradise by Lizzie Johnson. And if you read that book, you'll realize that the Skyway Drive is very similar to Florida Road, that we have the same similar issues with transmission lines. And there is a bunch of parallels to Durango and La Plata County that you would find in Butte County and Paradise, California. And if there's one thing you walk away from in that book and reading it, and again, she did a phenomenal job of really interviewing people, is that the evacuation routes. And I know the WAB there are 3 subcommittees, but I would suggest adding a 3rd piece of this initiative or a 4th piece of this initiative and really focusing on evacuation routes. And that's one of the areas that after, you know, consuming that information, that we feel the 240 between 501 and Helen's Store is absolutely critical to have that evacuation route strengthened by pushing the brush back and dealing with some of the other mitigation issues that could be along there. We've dumped those neighborhoods of Tween and Enchanted Forest twice in the last 5 years due to wildfire on 245. So, you know, I don't want the third time to be the charm where we're actually going to get a fire into those subdivisions. So evacuation routes, I think, are absolutely critical to be put into the mix on this stuff. And I would say that the other area that we've looked at very heavily, and we did put a grant in for the second time with the Colorado State Forestry for mitigation above forest groves all the way into the Florida watershed above Lemon. And I thought that was a very strong grant, and apparently it was strong enough to make it in and be considered. However, there was administrative oversight on my part, and I think on Mark's part, that we forgot one letter from a county commissioner into that grant application. But I think what it also does is gives us a little bit of opportunity. I considered retooling that grant a little bit, so that the proposal was to put a 20-person hand crew on that landscape and divide the hand crew into 2 10-person teams. And we would alternate those teams having do mitigation work and then doing wildfire training, so that at the end of 3 years at the grant cycle, we would have 20 wildland firefighters that would be fully credentialed with everything from their Sawyer credentials to their portable pumps and their firefighter one. And it would be essentially kind of a mitigation / jobs training program that hopefully we could offer some long-term employment, meaning 3 years to, that would keep people there. Because I think that a lot of this work is really great, but the workforce is not out there to do it. And one of the things that we keep trying to focus on is trying to hire seasonal wildland firefighters with this grant money, so that they're a force multiplier, and you can use these folks for suppression activities and pull them off of a mitigation project, which obviously is not, you don't get the same benefit from with the regular forestry folks or mitigation folks that are not wildland certified. There's still plenty of work, I think, for those folks to be doing, but I think there needs to be a fine balance in between utilizing these folks for suppression activities and then still having regular mitigation work go on. So we'll go back after that watershed area above. And again, the project area was from Forest Groves subdivision all the way north to the Forest Service boundary above Lemon. And, you know, we've already done some intelligence work on all that, and kind of know where where the low hanging fruit is and then where the hard work is. And then, like I said, I just want to really emphasize the issue about going and looking at a little bit of our evacuation numbers. And, you know, especially in our fire district, the two main arteries being 240 and 501, if we're dumping 1,100 households out of Forest Lakes onto those two roads, it's not going to turn out well. So again, I just asked the group to jump in that, and we're working on that watershed project. And currently, you know, we should be finishing up the Heartwood co-housing project. And then I know that the wildlife folks have several other projects going in the district that we're trying to collaborate with and burn their piles or help assist with that. And then lastly, I just like I said, highlight that area that's south of 160 and all that PJ over there. Again, looking at, I know Chief Dowdy has voiced his concerns over the prevailing winds coming from the northwest and into Durango. The flip side of that is obviously we know the weather patterns change in July and we start getting prevailing winds out of the southwest. And I think we need to take into those considerations in these landscape projects. So happy to answer any quick questions before I run off, but thank you again for everybody's time.
Thanks, Chief. Go ahead, Corolla.
Go ahead, Corolla.
Yeah, just kind of wanted to give you a little quick update so you're aware, Bruce. A couple things that the WAB has talked about discussing and is on the list to do, but there's so many things for them to do at once that they're kind of scheduling them out. Two of those things are emergency response, which will include evacuations and those type of things. And then the second one is economic incentives. So I think that ties in with what you were asking. They just haven't had a chance to wrap their heads around it quite yet because it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and Corolla, I would tell you, I had a conversation with Shauna, and one of the other things and again, this is all fresh off of consuming that Paradise book, is if we had to evacuate some of these neighborhoods that have animals in them, whether it's horses or llamas or whatever people have. We've not practiced that. We have, we've talked about it, but, when you look at what happened in Paradise, there was definitely some issues with moving animals. And then, the loss of people's income when, like, for example, cattle were burned over. So there's a lot of other big pieces of this evacuation thing that I think really needs some emphasis. As compared to what we've been focusing on, which is mitigation.
That's a really great point. Comes up in several topics. I know Adrian Archuleta has to get off the phone really quickly, so I was wondering if we could give him a moment. And Bruce, I think we definitely need to document that evacuation road component and think about how we move that forward.
Hey, thanks everybody. Have a good holiday.
Happy holidays, Bruce.
Adrian, if you're still there, let's hop over to you in TPW.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming to request. Something's come up and I got to get going, but yeah, I'll be brief. For Parks and Wildlife, the immediate work we've been engaged in has been out west. We do have several state wildlife areas adjacent to the community of Durango. So we've treated just here this past year, roughly, a little north of 1,200 acres, north of Lake Nighthorse up towards Junction Creek, mechanical treatment. It's been a success. We've had good collaboration with Bureau of Rec on some of that land along County Road 210. We're committed to treating that landscape. It's very important habitat for wildlife, especially for wintering wildlife. We do have a project ready to go this next year, an additional mechanical treatment in Perrins Peak State Wildlife Area between Dry Fork of Lightner Creek and Junction Creek. We'd also like to look at doing several hundred acres of prescribed fire in there. So something that we'd be reaching out to partners for support on that. In addition, in the greater landscape, just throwing a plug, appreciate the opportunity to collaborate with you all, our partners. CPW is tasked with managing a public resource that knows no boundaries. So, healthy forests help promote healthy wildlife populations, and that's, very important for economies, but for us, for future generations, real important to have the habitat and the populations, given all the challenges that exist. So I really appreciate all the work that you are committed to doing in any way that CPW can collaborate and support that. We're happy to be here and a part of it.
Thanks, Adrian.
Questions, if anybody has anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian.
Anthony, I have one question back on Chief Evans.
Yeah. So I think Chief might be off though. But
yeah, he's off. I know that Chief Evans had to go off. One of the things that I've heard in several circles that we might want to put on our parking lot list, because it immediately gets, really complicated, is the sharing of the workforce, first of all, across jurisdictions. Can we do that? And then building our workforce. And how do we work with our educational? I know we have Southwest Conservation Corps, Conservation Legacy on the phone, but if we want to put this ambitious vision forward, are we going to have the workers to do it? Yes. So, and I know it's very, very complicated very quick, but maybe that's something we have a sub team working on, or again, maybe another meeting where we simply share information.
No, I think that's a really great point. I know Fort Lewis College, Pueblo Community College, Southwest Conservation Corps. There's really great partners thinking about this. It'd be great to tap into.
And can you prompt people to share what data source they use or how they are maintaining their data?
Sorry, say that one more time, Allison. Prompt for data sources.
Yeah.
Okay.
Allison's also putting in, how do we share data? What data sources are you using? And so another great parking lot, how do we begin to cross that network?
So speaking of work, we'll just segue over to Nick and Clara and Kevin, if Kevin's on the line now for SEC and talking about some of the great work that y'all are doing. It's a good segue over to you guys.
Sure, Anthony, I think I'll jump on and talk a little bit about what SEC is doing. So, as we mentioned before at SEC, we're really focused on empowering youth and young adults within our region. We work across the Southwest, but certainly across La Plata County. We have a concentration of projects there. And we're really focused on providing those development opportunities for our youth and young adults to become those conservation leaders and practitioners. That takes the form of a number of different crews and internships. Some of the ones that we'll highlight just for brevity's sake here include chainsaw crews, veteran fire crews, backcountry trail crews, forest technicians. We have ecological monitoring crews and wetland restoration and monitoring crews. So I think those are some of the ones that are probably most relevant to the work that we're discussing today. But I think talking about what both Chief Evans mentioned and then what Marcia brought up is just really understanding what the needs are from the community. And that's going to be a question that we are really trying to dive into to make sure we're providing the skill sets that hopefully you all need in your future employees and the future initiatives that are created out of this conversation. The other aspect, going back to some of the prompts that were provided about community resilience, is that we are also really trying to focus on cultivating greater inclusivity within this work and within our community. And that's something that both SEC and Conservation Legacy broadly are really trying to grow within that space. Specifically, we have been historically more focused on public lands, but recently we've also been working on private lands where there is a public interest. My program specifically is working in sort of between Durango and Bayfield, providing private landowners with management plans, and then we're working with the Association of Consulting Foresters, trying to connect those private landowners with them to then carry out the work that is recommended out of the projects that we've created. So I think that's sort of the quick and brief version. I do also want to mention, I think that Aaron had brought up the efforts of Pueblo Community College in Fort Lewis. There's also the Southwestern Colorado Education Collaborative, which is those two partners plus 5 school districts that include Pagosa, Ignacio, Bayfield, 9R, and Silverton. So all those organizations are working together to try and create pathway programs right now in the building trades and in the environmental space. And so I think especially that environmental pathway has a lot of opportunity as we talk about workforce development, of engaging individuals or community in earlier age and creating those intentional pathways to fill the needs that all of us are working on. So that was sort of a lot of information very quickly. Happy to expand upon that, but I also think it'd be great at some point later on to have a perhaps more focused meeting specifically on what workforce development looks like and really identifying the needs of all of your organizations so that we make sure we are providing the most relevant skill sets as these projects move forward.
Yeah, boy, that's a great point. And I do think another conversation around that would be, there's a lot we could dive into there.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Any brief questions for Nick? And just to have folks on tap, I'm going to shift over to Joe, Bruce, Jesse, and Ron next for the consulting foresters component, because those are some of the guys that are actually doing the work on the ground. But before we shift over, any questions for Nick and SEC?
And I just want to give a quick shout out. I know that we have huge partners in the city and the Forest Service and with BLM. I'm sure I'm missing a few folks. And certainly NRCS with my program directly, and Wild Turkey Foundation, Wild Turkey Federation. So thank you to all of you for your support in allowing us to do the work that we do.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. And just as we move into Joe and everybody else, there was a conversation that kind of moves into this in the chat, where Debbie Lee acknowledged that engaging private property owners is very important. Bruce Short, responded saying there are a number of private contractors that do this work on the ground, often less expensive per acre, and also some more emphasis on woods workers at high school and tech levels. And John Frisch also acknowledged that their private landowners are reducing tons per acre via community workshops by retired wildland firefighters. So there's a lot happening there. Just leading into your part, Bruce and Joe.
So if there are no more questions for Nick, or are there any questions for Nick, that is, Joe, I'm going to shift over to you. And I did give you co-hosting permissions. So you'll be able to share whatever slides that you have. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you all.
Thank you, Anthony. You know what, it would be easier if you put up that slide, okay? And then I could just talk about it. But while you're setting that up, Anthony, I would like to recognize my colleague, Jesse Ramirez, in preparing this map that I'm going to share with you. And the ironic thing about this map is that the projects that the Association of Consulting Foresters have here in La Plata County almost mirror what the Forest Service presented and what Pat presented from the perspective of the Rocky Mountain Restoration Initiative. So a lot of times the consultants end up working under the radar here, but here's an opportunity to bring the consultants to the forefront. And I know Chief Evans is not on now, but I did text him or chat to him that, it doesn't have to be that his project where he's concerned about 160 would be included in Rocky Mountain Restoration Initiative. There are 4 consulting forestry firms here that could solve his problem. And so I just, want to point that out as some of our, as my colleague Bruce said, we're flexible. We can move in and move quickly and produce results that are ready for woods work on the ground. So Anthony, anytime you're ready to.
So I want to apologize. I didn't actually catch this, I don't think, the other day. But I don't actually have, I have some comments made about the agenda, but I don't have your slide there. So. Okay,
well then, all right, hang on a second. I do have the slide up, and let's see.
The green button on this is share.
Yeah, I can see the share. Well, dang it. Hang on 1 minute here, and I'll make sure I have this going. Right. Okay, now let me see if I can share this, folks. Here we go. Can everybody see this map?
Yeah, Joe, you're a pro.
We got you, Joe.
Okay. Well, thanks, Anthony, for the help anyway. I guess I could have done it myself, but anyway. So La Plata County, and we focused most of the projects here in La Plata County, but I have to say that the consultants do work across the Southwest and into Arizona, over into Utah, and south of us in New Mexico. And we've all had projects in these various areas. But without having the polygons for the Rocky Mountain Restoration Initiative or even the CFLRP, you can see where these projects line up in those boundaries in your mind's eye. And all of these things are probably also captured by NRCS and the Colorado State Forest Service, because many of the projects are funded through EQIP, and many of the projects are Colorado Forest Ag Plans, for which the Colorado State Forest Service has the the responsibility and the jurisdiction over those plans on their acceptance and their recommendation to the county tax assessor. So this is what is shown for 2021 in the green, and then the orange is prospective projects that are already starting to line up for 2022. So that's where we are in working with the non-industrial private forest landowners here in La Plata County to perform forest management plans and to assess their properties and to help them to reach what desires they have. And many of their desires as property owners is a reduction of fire, but it's not the primary motivation for them. They're as individuals, they're motivated by their own experiences, and a lot of it could be wildlife and recreation and hunting opportunities. So it fits in with the overall theme of what was being presented this morning. And with that, I'll stop here.
Awesome, thank you, Joe. Any questions for Joe and our ACF folks on the line?
I think just a thank you to Joe and Bruce and Jesse and company. Without them doing the work that they're doing amongst the guys at Kyle and at NRCS, man, we would be lacking a wood supply. So huge thanks to those guys.
Yeah, just another point too. These are individual forest management plans, either CAP 106 with NRCS or Forest Ag with Colorado State Forest Service. But in addition to this, personally, we've done over 13 community wildfire protection plans for subdivisions across, most of which are in La Plata County. There's a couple over in Montezuma. But for example, the one that Chief Evans is working on with Heartwood is based off of the CWPP that was done over there in 2011 and 2012. So Edgemont Ranch area, the Edgemont Highlands, Edgemont Meadows, we've been working heavily with them in the implementation of their CWPPs. So it's more than just individual forest ag and conservation stewardship plans. So we can do a lot. And I made the point about the private contractors because they're looking for people, and certainly the Southwest Conservation Corps training programs and the other training programs that are going on utilize those folks that come out of those training programs. But I know that they're looking for people that could also run equipment, skidders, harvesters, small equipment. So anybody that can run a farm tractor or a large ATV a lot of times can start running those kinds of equipment as well. So those kinds of training programs are essential to getting the workforce that we need to accomplish all this work that we're talking about. We can plan forever, and I was a planner for the Forest Service for many years. And but one of the satisfying things about working with private landowners is that they can move fairly quickly, and it's been very gratifying to see the work that's been done and to be a part of that work.
Fantastic, Bruce. There was one additional comment from Clara with SEC in the chat box here, commenting on the things to come with the new climate core that is, I believe that was in the infrastructure bill. So great, some other great things on the ground from SEC in our landscape. Let's see. So with that, Andy, you just spoke there, and you're a recipient of a lot of the good things that are happening. Andy, you want to give us the quick rundown of what Timber Age has been up to and where you're all going for the next year?
That's like if you speak up, you will be called. Yeah, so just very quickly, I don't want to be doom and gloom, but just for reference, Kyle and I did go out to Greenville on the invitation of the Sierra Institute a few weeks back, and it left a pretty big mental mark. I don't think we have a full understanding of what we're headed for. It was really intense to basically drive from, you know, here to South Fork and never leave the burn scar, and to see, you know, 18 skidders at a time working in the highway corridors and piles of wood chip bigger than the DHS campus. And that's just for clearing highways. It's intense. And so it's good that we have this group of people together, because this is the group that's going to make a difference. So for timber age, yeah, we've grown from 2 to 6 in the last year. We're now consuming between 3 and 5 CCF a week, and can, you know, in short order see that growing. I think, you know, a 5 to 8 CCF within, you know, a March timeframe is real. And as we are able to move forward on the creation of our new facility, which is going to go down at Phoenix Recycling, I think we can see an increase in our consumption there as well. And we have taken wood from 4 of the major local subdivisions and 9 now private landowners. And so it's been amazing to be able to work with those private landowners. We still have some challenges in front of us around wood hauling. Just having the right truck, the right infrastructure, knowing that we're not dealing with traditional logging anymore. It's a different set of tools, and we're struggling with that, but we're making progress day by day. And we have enough projects in the pipeline for 2022 that, you know, we feel confident in 2022. And I think I'll stop there for the sake of brevity. If there's more that we can do as a community, like I got to tour a biomass boiler, it just happened to be housed in a CLT building out in Quincy, California, that heats a local community college, and they offset their heating needs tremendously by the use of a biomass boiler. And in the winter, it goes through about 2 40-yard roll-off bins a week to heat that campus. And so it can give us a sense of scale of, you know, as we are confronting biomass, where we might look in our community for options like that, because I think biomass to heat might be one of the easier options for us as a community before we confront, you know, biomass to energy and some of the other things that we're looking at. So I'll stop there and just thank you all. As the one wood utilizer on the call, I really appreciate this group. You all are responsible for our success, so thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Andy. Actually, to go back to Joe, would you mind stop sharing your map there? That's a great map. Thanks. Let's see. So kind of keeping on the topic of some private lands work. I think actually, if you're still on, my list has gotten all kind of mixed up here. Ashley, would you give a quick rundown of what WAP is working on right now?
Sure. Great. So I think I wanted to just start off, and before I go into our actual acres on the ground, is just remind people of our neighborhood ambassador program. So a lot of the work that's going on around the county, we have some good connections through our volunteers to get that word out, to connect professionals in the agencies with those communities if the work's going to happen right up next to those. So I just shared a map of where our communities currently are throughout the county. I will say it needs to be updated a little bit. We brought on a few more last month, so I think we're up to 105 communities for the entire 5-county region, but about 60 to 65 within La Plata. So a good number that we can help with messaging and getting that word out to our communities. So we have a few funding sources that have us focused on certain areas throughout the county. We have a state fire assistance WUI funding that is focused on Rafter J and the Edgemont area. And so the way those grants work is ours are pretty much a cost share program, and we focus on defensible space. So it would be, most of the projects are going to be about 100 feet away from the structure, although we do have some community projects that would be for larger parcels, common property or roadside thinning to help with evacuation. So those two are priorities going forward, and we have quite a bit of funding to continue projects in both of those areas. And those names have come up a couple times, so I think that's pretty positive that we can continue to have some mitigation incentives for private landowners within those communities. In addition to that, we've been working through a CAFA grant in Forest Lakes. And over the past 2 years, we went through funding pretty quickly for that grant. I think in total this year, we did 25 projects treating 37 acres, about the same as we did last year. And we are working with partners to apply for some additional funding for that neighborhood through the next CAFA round of proposals that's due in January. And I think that that area is a very important one because of the other neighboring landowners. So the Forest Service, BLM, and the Colorado State Forest Service all have parcels around there. So working with those partners to really create landscape scale treatments and fire adaptation in that neighborhood is going to be very important. We had one other community project where we did an evacuation, roadside thinning on evacuation route within Enchanted Forest Estates. And so that treated about 7.5 acres and affected 30 homes. So in total this year, through all our projects, I think we had just over almost 60 acres within La Plata County treated, and pretty much a direct impact on 70 to 75 structures. So pretty strong numbers for the countywide. And just a little bit more about next year, we will have funding. Hopefully we'll get the grant for Forest Lakes, but continuing Rafter J and Edgemont, and then looking for that Florida Geography grant that we talked about earlier, kind of coming out of the partnership with Durango Fire and MSI. So those will be our priority areas for 2022.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley, and really excited for your work with that stuff in the Florida. So very helpful. Yeah.
So a good thing John just put it in the chat there was making sure that we distinguish what we're talking about when we speak about prescribed fire between burn piles and broadcast burning. So that's the notes about maps. Any questions for Ashley?
Also, great discussion in here about workforce capacity, some training opportunities, the need for a livable wage. And I think all of that is really a good future parking lot topic for how we build a workforce going forward.
Let me stop sharing. Up here.
This is John first. I have a question for Ashley.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, Ashley, one of the concerns we have in our community is people are standing idle because they're awaiting cost share grants from WAP. Now, we do have a contingency of homeowners that I've been training that are reducing tons per acre through burn piles. That kind of ties into that question that you just read, Anthony. And my concern is if we have landowners that are waiting for, cost share, free money, however you want to look at it, is this the behavior that should we be discussing this behavior? Because we want to get folks mobilized. We want to get them reducing fuels. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think since I've come on board in the last 4 years, a lot of the grants that we've had available have been very specific of not wanting countywide funding. So they want to pick smaller communities that are, I guess, more targeted areas. And so that's what we've been doing. And it's been a bit of a struggle of how we continue to work with our communities, knowing that certain funding can only be done in communities. But I will say that we do have our chipper rebate program, which is not as much, and it's not going to be fully reimbursable for all that area. But there are some ways that we can move forward with having some smaller incentives for homeowners for some of that work. And then also if there's a community and who really wants to get some work done and they have support, we can help with trying to prepare and pull together proposals through the State Forest Service's firmworm opportunity. And we can act as kind of a facilitator of that grant. So the communities can, if they have the planning work done and want to do it, that we can help manage that grant for those communities. So I think there's other ways that we can meet individually with those communities to come up with a plan that may not fall within one of our existing cost share programs.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'll let our community board of directors know this.
Okay, great.
Yeah, thanks, John, for the great question. And I've added how to engage idle landowners in projects while we're waiting on cost share funding to our parking lot list here. Sticking with private lands, let's shift over to Kyle. I don't know if you have any other updates you want to articulate from NRCS standpoint that haven't already been said.
Hi all. I didn't really know I was on the list, but I am happy to talk about what we've got going on. We just ended our EQIP application deadline was December 10th, or I'm starting to forget deadlines now, but it just ended. So if any folks are interested in applying for the Environmental Quality Incentive Program, it will have to be for fiscal year 2023. Unfortunately, I'm available for site visits and technical expertise anytime, but that is a running tally. We have been, working in coordination with Four Rivers, RMRI, CFLRP, San Juan Headwaters. What other meetings do I attend? In collaboration to try and have the same messaging. As far as the NRCS's kind of concerns, we look for resource concerns, and we're really trying to get more into restorative forestry, really pushing the envelope on private lands. And I have 2 projects going on right now that I'm really excited about seeing outcomes similar to what we really want to see for restorative forestry on private lands. It's very difficult because these are smaller acreage parcels, but potentially have some larger acreage parcels. Unfortunately, not in the RMRI landscape, but it will be in Archuleta County, Pagosa Springs area. So looking forward to the future and trying to create large impacts on private lands with the facilitation and help of all our partners and our contractors that actually are doing the work out in the field. We share a contractor list with CSFS. So, these folks have been kind of vetted from 2 agencies, whether I've worked with them in my former capacity with CSFS, or Mark or Ryan Cox, or myself at my current capacity with the NRCS. So that's kind of a brief input. We do have, a lot of acres treated and values and numbers. I think I'm supposed to be compiling that stuff for the January meeting, so I don't really have that currently, but looking at potentially 600 plus acres planned for fiscal year 2022. Fiscal year 2021, we've probably had 300 to 400 acres treated so far, and still in continuation for the next couple of years for the 2-year, 3-year contracts that we have going on. So a lot of good stuff and a lot of kind of trying to push the envelope with a lot of these projects. And it seems with a lot of front loading of information and having good conversations with a lot of private landowners and sharing science and experiences and numbers and data from modeling softwares, we're really trying to get some good stuff done on the ground.
Awesome. Great summary.
Thanks, Kyle, for impromptu rundown there. Sorry about that.
Hey, no problem. Happy to help. If anyone has any questions, feel free to share in the chat, and I'll get to them.
Debbie Lee saying sharing contractor list, another item in the WAB addressed in the central repository. This conversation is good to show the like-mindedness of the group. And I was seeing similar things too. I think at some point, you know, we have our parking lot, we're seeing similar, like cutting themes of education and outreach to private landowners. There's actually, you know, there are places where we can bring different activities and partners together to think about that more holistically.
So staying with kind of a private lands theme here, Mark, is there anything that you want to update from Colorado State Forest Service?
Well, you know, as far as projects go, I think everybody's heard a lot of, you know, where we're involved with folks from funding projects through Ashley's programs, funding projects through Chief Evans's programs as well. And then of course with the consulting foresters that our forest ag program and some other things. So again, yeah, we work on a lot of private lands or non-federal lands, but we rely on all these partners. And you know, I just kind of want to echo what Chief Evans had to say regarding grants. And I think that's, you know, these collaborations are really important. They're bringing attention to our area, but also, you know, Chief Evans expressed frustration, and we have too, is some of these grants, you know, sometimes they're hit or miss, and it's sometimes hard to carry a program forward when the funding's up in the air. And so I think what these collaboratives and what everybody working together has done, I think there's an increased push, and I think that's where we're going to see more funding come in. There's going to always be grant programs, and we're going to administer those, but we're also looking at funding coming into the areas for these for overall projects or overall programmatic areas where they're not quite as, I won't say arbitrary, but you know, where we know we're going to have a little bit more secure funding, and that we can move some of these programs forward. So hopefully that's I know that's in the works, and but we'll continue to have our small and various grant programs available as well. And that's really all I have.
Thanks, Mark. Amy, are you still on the line? Yeah, it looks like. Amy, if you're on the line still, would you mind giving the quick update on City of Durango work?
Sure, and I have a map queued up. I don't know if you want me to share that.
That'd be great. Let me give you permission to share.
Okay.
1 second.
So while he's doing that, again, I'm Natural Resources Manager with the City of Durango Parks and Recreation Department. Our focus for the past couple of years has been on the WUI. Let's see, did I show the right or share the right screen?
I got a map up. Yep, we got your WUI map. Good.
Perfect. Okay. So on this map, that sage light green is all city-owned land. And we pulled together a great group of folks for a fire adapted Durango partnership a few years ago. And it's been amazing to be working with Colorado State Forest Service, BLM, Durango Fire Protection District, Colorado State Division of Fire Prevention and Control, San Juan National Forest, and Wildfire Adapted Partnership in working on methodology to identify priority WUI areas, and then identifying the appropriate method for these very challenging areas that we're working on. And then heavy lift is educating community members. So a lot of Durango residents are used to fire mitigation happening away from their homes, out on federal lands. They may see something in the distance, but to actually hear a chainsaw behind their house or a chipper at the end of the street has been a big culture shift. And I am so grateful to our partners in helping us raise that awareness and education. It makes it much easier for us to get back out there and start looking at going deeper in the next few years on what our treatment areas will cover. On my map, the purple color in Horse Gulch, which is kind of in the lower right-hand corner, that really set the stage for this collaboration and partnership. Most of that work was done with Durango Fire Protection District crews and the Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control. Very high profile. We had the advantage on that treatment area of being able to drive chippers and full-size vehicles for most of that work. As we progressed into what's shown here in blue, these treatment areas got a lot trickier. Steep terrain, loose rocky soils, no vehicular access, if any. And this work was put out to bid. We contracted Deep Roots, a local arborist company, to do the work. And this funding source came from the BLM, which is fantastic opportunity. Our contractors got done with their work. Oh gosh, end of November, they finished that up. And then what's shown here in red, we received a Colorado State Forest Service grant. I contracted with Southwest Conservation Corps crew to get going on this also in, oh gosh, end of October, early November. They tackled 6 of a 9-acre treatment area, very dense Gamble oak. The crews did a bang up job. And then we'll be picking up that treatment and moving forward with completing all of what's shown in red during the 2022 season is my game plan, assuming everything goes well. So again, really great partnership and awareness from community members. The culture shift is so prevalent. A year ago when we had our public engagement meetings, we'd have a couple dozen neighbors attend with a whole lot of questions. Resistance equaled positive feedback and acceptance of treatment happening right behind their houses. This year, when we did our public engagement, we had fewer people in attendance and just about everybody said, awesome, thanks for doing it. We look forward to the Sawyer crews being out there. So all things positive. As we continue to ground truth exactly along our boundary behind houses, we are starting to see that treatment focuses moving forward. We'll start shifting from that adjacency to the private or to our private boundary and kind of pulling back and starting to do more vegetation management on the interior of our parks. And then one other project that is not on this map, Dalla Mountain Park, which is adjacent to Animas City Mountain, where BLM is doing their fantastic project for next year. Dalla was manually thinned, oh gosh, about 10 years ago, and those piles, we weren't able to get out there and burn those for a whole lot of reasons, but that area poses some challenges with getting burn permits due to adjacency of a nursing home facility. But we had DFPC restack those piles, and DFPD is assisting with getting a burn permit. So we're hoping to burn off the old piles that were repiled in Dalla this winter as well. So that's it from us.
Thanks, Amy. And I'm going to have you keep your map up there just for 1 second. So I know we don't have anybody from BLM on the line here, but hopefully everybody's aware that BLM, it's a big priority for next year and presently is prescribed burn, a broadcast burn up on Animas City Mountain. And so please, we'll keep everybody informed if you're not already like on the email list of things. There'll be plenty of community outreach efforts they've already done and will be going forward into the spring. So in theory, the earliest we could see some smoke coming off Animas City is spring of next year. And also with BLM priorities, they do have their new fuels EA for the county, and there's a lot of priority area along the Florida corridor for both thinning and prescribed burning in the future. So I obviously can't speak fully to them, but that's sort of the overview of BLM. Scott, would you mind giving a quick rundown of Durango Fire?
Yeah, so Durango Fire, primarily our job's prevention and suppression of fires. And with the increase of fires we've seen in the area in the past few years, we've increased our seasonal wildland crew to 15 people. 3 of those are permanent. And those permanent positions have offered us the opportunity to assist with city projects and wildfire adaptive partnership with site assessments and CWPPs. Having those permanent positions year round gives us someone in the community almost on a daily basis to engage with people, site assessments. This year we accomplished 71 acres of broadcast burning, primarily on agricultural lands. A lot of that was ditches because people were pretty concerned about water. Well, drought means not a lot of water, so keeping those ditches clean is really important to the private industry. We also did about 1,000 cubic yards of woody debris burning on private land that people, for mitigation debris. And moving forward with our manpower, we're working with the city and the county on projects when we have available people, but we're also working towards a prescribed burn program that meets national standards with NWCG. So we can do, small scale pile burns or broadcast burns in the county and city. And that's, we feel, really important because Southwest Colorado monsoon season, like post monsoons, when our best burn window is. Unfortunately, that's the height of burn season, wildfire season in the Western US. So if we can get a standalone burn program, we can address like prescribed burning when it's conducive to our conditions and independent of the federal situation to the west. And yeah, we're happy to work with all these partners, and the amount of mentorship and collaboration has been really huge for us. It's really appreciated.
Thank you, Scott. Just want to do a quick acknowledgement of some of the prioritization that Sam Juan is doing in particular, and I think James is off the line now, so I might pop over to Lindsay here. But we could spend probably an hour or two talking about Sam Juan work in particular, but just knowing that there are several environmental assessments that are teed up for the Plata County landscape. In particular, the first one coming up is for the Junction Creek area. And the Four Rivers Collaborative has been working with the San Juan to think through desired conditions. And we'll be diving more into that in the new year. I don't know, Lindsay, in brief, do you want to just give the big top lines of, a couple of things coming down the line for next year from the San Juan?
Thanks for setting that up so nice. I don't have a lot of the details that James would have because I really am looking at it from the bigger picture standpoint. But you did hit that right, Anthony, on that Junction Creek area. As far as folks on this call, that's probably one of the areas of concern. Obviously, we've got lots, but that seeing a lot more activity in there. And then, like you mentioned, the environmental assessment work. We also, as far as fuels treatments go, really going to be looking at some spring burn windows since, as mentioned by Scott, our fall burn windows haven't been going so well with the fire activity across the country that time of year. So should see some good work happening in Junction Creek, and we really hope that the public can jump on board with that. It's a very popular area with folks. So yeah, I think that's all I've got on that one, Anthony, as far as Junction Creek, and then some of those areas that were mentioned before on the eastern side of the county.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay. So with that, any other folks who we didn't acknowledge that want to provide any project work before we shift over to a recap?
I can just speak to the monitoring. I think the other thing is, this is a big picture, and we've talked about overlaps where we think we can all, seeing mitigation, education, mapping. There's also a monitoring component. Aligning our outcomes, aligning our project work with those outcomes, and seeing if we're achieving those outcomes. And just, we're talking about with the Mountain Studies Institute is talking about that with Rocky Mountain Restoration Initiative at San Juan National Forest. And certainly we'll be bringing that, we're going to have some conversations around that with the CFLRPs as well. And so I think a future conversation on what are we monitoring for, how are we monitoring it? And that's going to engage a lot of partners, because we're not only going to need to monitor, given the CFLRP, the ecological impacts, but social and economic impacts as well. And so we'll be, I think, working with Fort Lewis College, working across Mountain Studies Institute, working with our other partners in RMRI, and really beginning to think through how we assess the work we're doing. And this is going to be a little bit different because we're looking at a landscape, right? We're used to monitoring project by project. How do we scale that up to a landscape? We've also gotten a fortunate opportunity through the U.S. Forest Service with some help in thinking that landscape scale monitoring through. So that's really huge.
Yeah, look, kind of last component with MSI monitoring, this ties to our other collaborators regionally, both the Dolores Group and the San Juan Headwaters Forest Health Partnership over in Plata County, is we have been engaged with, project monitoring with those entities for, quite a while now, and bringing that knowledge into our community. So that we're kind of working from the same template, if you will, in terms of what we're actually doing on the ground. So thanks to Danny and the Dwarf folks for helping kind of spearhead a lot of those conversations over the past couple of years here. So
we're gonna bring up, Shauna's got the parking lot that we generated. We all knew we weren't gonna get through this whole agenda. There's a lot of introductions, a lot going on. But I think calling up this parking lot and maybe thinking about what's the next step for us. But before I go too far with that, Jason, did you want to add anything to that monitoring comment?
No, I'm good, Aaron. Thank you.
Yeah. More to come on that. So here's the parking lot. There's a lot parked. Some of this, I think RMRI is staged to help us think through and really begin to advance some of those conversations. I think the other thing that came forward was funding, as far as like how do we network and associate our funding, and really coordinate that funding. And I think that's another conversation that RMRI can help with. But I want to see, how are people feeling about this? What do we want, and Anthony, what do you, helping us walk through this? What are we seeing? How do we do, what do we do next?
That's a big,
Anthony and Aaron, one thing that's missing from there is biomass. I mean, just having been to California and watching what's going on, if we don't get like way the heck ahead of what we're going to do with POL and chipped material, we will literally bury ourselves in it.
Perfect.
Just for folks who are not familiar with the jargon, Andy mentioned POL. That just is shorthand for pregnant logs. So all the other bits of the tree, so biomass.
Anything else we missed in that parking lot that folks are seeing or not seeing?
Are there any economic or social components? I know Shauna's got a block there, but anything specific that we really should be thinking about in pre-planning on, that folks have in mind?
Don't have like a collaborative communications approach. It's come up multiple times, but not necessarily the parking lot. Just as a highlighted value.
Let's do that. So Allison's saying collaborative communications strategy.
Yep.
I wrote that down in here somewhere.
It's in our value.
Yeah,
No, it's in the values. That's right.
It's up there in mine.
Okay.
Anthony?
Yep.
I'm gonna get a little pragmatic here, everyone. I have to leave at about 5 till to get to a meeting at 1. I have a lot of stuff at the end of the year. I guess a couple things is this has just been a fabulous meeting. I mean, I've learned so much, and I think just seeing what the private sector is doing, I mean, it's just been great. I wonder about capacity. So I always ask the logical question of like, who would take all these things on?
Yeah.
And maybe the group that kind of got this organized, and anybody has ideas about that. I mean, we have a coordinator coming on board. I'm not Shauna offering that person to take on all this stuff, but we do have some capacity coming on with the WWPF coordinator. MSI has capacity, other people. So, we don't have to decide it now, but let's maybe see where these ideas live.
Yeah.
And then not to mention the WAB, of course. I do wonder about setting up a Google chat group so that as you're going after a grant or you have an ambassador training or you're, I don't know how to do all that, but maybe we can have some kind of a chat group. And then finally, I would say that there was on the agenda, do we meet again? And my vote would be yes. I mean, if people are willing, and I know it's a lot of time, and again, this is a busy time of year, but I know there's a couple of other similar groups like this, one around water and specifically the Animas River watershed. And those meetings, just like this one, I walk away with so much information. So I'd vote to meet again and would be happy to have conversations about where this stuff lives going forward. And
Yeah.
maybe if people can put in the chat or say, like, what's your biggest priority? We have workforce, we have biomass, we have the one map concept, we have the coordinating funding, coordinating across fences, whether it's private or public. What is maybe a priority coming out of today? And mine would be map. You know, getting one map that we all understand and are working from, but that's just my one single point of view, so.
I think that I support the plan there, like one map. And then what I've noticed just from listening to the conversation is that a lot of the different fundings have different deadlines and are for different things. And so I'm thinking about like, okay, we get this map and then we see what types of grants we have, which we all know we have. And then what's your timeline? So when you can, you know, move that top 10 priority list of the area with the timing of when the grants come and go. To help make the flow. We probably already have that info, just pull it all together somewhere.
Sounds good. And thank you for that, Shona. And then Jason, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I think going along with the map, you know, the communications piece, I know, you know, short-term developing a communication strategy around this is going to be complex and take time. But in the near term, something that, I mean, was needed 6 months ago, I think is some basic talking points for what we're doing in the Plata County and each of these things that we all adopt and use, and then coordinated communications around funding, because we all have our networks and we're communicating with folks. And, you know, for myself, you know, people ask me, how many projects do we have shovel ready on private lands? And I call all of you, but the more coordinated we are and using the same language and talking points when we're responding to these state level and regional and national level funding sources, I think the more successful we're going to be, so that we're coordinated in the approach to how we're responding to those requests. And so to me, that's a really high priority near-term thing that's going to be happening in real time in the coming months.
Great. And then Lindsay Hansen put in, what about public education? And will the parking lot be shared with all participants? We'll absolutely share this.
Yeah. Well, so I'll work with Shauna and Allison over here to figure out how we can share this document. We'll draft up a final just Word document parking lot thing for us to share as well too. Joe, you got your hand up?
I do, Anthony. I just want to point out, like in the world of consultants, there is a conservation activity plan that is funded by the NRCS, and the state conservationist has been somewhat facilitative in working with us. But the way NRCS is set up is that an individual landowner would have to apply for a conservation activity plan. And Kyle talked about the EQIP deadlines. And that means that they ended up having to wait until 2023 in order to sign on for a conservation activity plan that can pay the forester. So what we're finding out as consultants is that many private landowners forego that year and do not sign up for the conservation activity plan, which can defray the cost of their plan. So that's an institutional barrier at the federal level that we would like to see addressed, so that there's more real-time sign up for consulting foresters, and the NRCS grants conservation activity plan funding, so that the conservation activity plan can be completed without having to wait a year. And many folks, if they're motivated, they don't want to wait that year. They just go ahead and pay for it out of pocket. So something that maybe the parking lot can help us with.
Great, thank you, Joe. Corolla?
Sorry, it took me a while to find my unmute. One of the things that I think needs to sit in the parking lot at some point, we're having this conversation at the state level as well, is an economic incentive side to this, which I think ties into the conversation we were just having, right? Because we're not always going to have grants, and we're not going to always have those things always available. But can we look at other potential ways of doing this where we have economic incentives that can assist people in moving forward with some of their projects?
Yeah, great. It does seem like we're kind of getting down to the last few minutes here. It sounded like another meeting might be warranted, and maybe we get to parse out this parking lot, you know, and start to distribute it and think about who gets involved in what. Does that sound like a good next step?
Absolutely.
Jason, some of this we're going to cover in an RMRI mapping exercise, right? Is there overlap with RMRI that you see with this?
Yeah, I mean, virtually all of it overlaps. And so that's where a lot of the stuff, the sooner the better. You know, we're looking at a February 17th meeting where everyone here would be invited to participate in how do we take that next step in terms of developing that shared strategy for these priority areas in the Plata County and surrounding Durango and Bayfield in particular. Really at this kind of 20 to 50,000 acre landscape level, and looking at what are the key priorities and actions that need to be done from a water perspective, from a community safety perspective, from a wildlife and a recreation perspective. And so, you know, as you can see, all of these things in this list are really tied to that. And so I really hope folks will join in that, and we can kind of merge these efforts into one thing and really carry this forward to the ground level.
Well, I think what Jason brought up before, if I may real quickly, is this is going to be super important for our area, these talking points, because with all the big monies that are coming down the pipeline, right, through the federal government and the state government, we all have to be aligned when we send the message up. So Jason hit this right on the nail on the head right here. This, you know, sooner than later, because a lot of those big CFRP programs and NRCS stuff and all that coming down that.
So thinking about talking points, I think this is the great one. I'm trying to think from a coordination standpoint how to facilitate that conversation. And my first kind of reaction is that creating a shared document where we can kind of, you know, start listing out our individual talking points would be probably a good start. Knowing that, you know, we haven't really diving into our CFLRP conversation yet, and knowing that we do have an RMRI specific meeting in February, how does starting at least just a shared document for talking points?
You know, we probably, and you guys got stuff out there already, so it's already there. So
Right.
get it together, get it in a nice package, and then that's like endorsed to do that, you know. And I think down the road, having the MOU in the county with all of y'all is going to be, I mean, there's a talking point right there that, you know, the WAB is working on an MOU in our county for the things that we've identified. So that's going to be big picture stuff, but not too many talking points, like 5 high level, because you're going to send it up to the national office or back east, right? Don't give them too many things. Just give them the main high level stuff to really showcase the work that you've all been doing for years down here. I mean, I can remember for years when we started the public-private partnership talks after the Missionary Ridge fire, right? And MSI came on board and stuff like that. So just 5 high level talking points to really showcase and be thankful for the work and the money that's been coming down the pipeline to us, right? Jason and the Forest Service and then federal down into the state. So that's a huge priority sooner than later.
So Jason, in that February 17th meeting for RMRI of that parking lot, we're going to cover a bit of that, right? Do you think that's a launching point, and then we could see what gaps we have following that meeting for maybe setting another meeting to follow up on some of those other parking lot items we don't touch?
Yeah, I think they could work concurrently. You know, I definitely think that the map conversation, that meeting is really going to drive that. If everybody's, you know, kind of game to kind of try and move that forward, I think that'll really be a space where we can push that in. I think that what's going to come, or what we hope will come from that, is once we see what those key actions are and kind of the scale and scope we're talking about, that's really going to inform what are those funding needs, what colors of money. That's going to inform what kind of capacity, biomass issues. And so all these things cascade and kind of off of one another. But I think that some of them are going to be addressed. Some of them are dependent on kind of a previous action before I think we can really address them. And so I think it's kind of both, Aaron.
So is there a second meeting, meeting of this group that happens
Yes,
outside of that?
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. I think it'd be very beneficial for this group like this to be 4 times a year, like quarterly, right? And then just kind of get a document where we can start sharing things and moving it around and get it aligned with all the other stuff being pulled in, right? So.
Question for Allison in the Wildfire Advisory Board. What do you foresee as the timing in terms of how you're going to approach the BOCC on those topics that you brought up? And what input do you need from a body like this beforehand or your term?
I was gonna put my timetable. I think, so I don't know how many people know, April was adopted by the county's wildfire preparedness and prevention law. So my hope is to roll out the MOU either as a document ready to sign, or at least start to publicly speak about that concept around April. That's a first deadline. And then as far as like the communications or the Resiliency Hub idea, being a communications portal, I don't think that work would really start until after, but the conversation getting the board of county commissioners to kind of support that, I'm looking at March.
So does it sound like maybe a next meeting for this group would be March-ish? We'll have the February meeting with RMRI and then bringing this group together again in March. Or does that sound too long? Jason, you have your hand up.
The one thing I just wanted to put out there too, and I hope it doesn't come off the wrong way, but I guess what I can't speak for the whole RMRI steering committee. We've got a lot of members on that can jump in if I'm misspeaking, but I guess I would love to see, we're saying this group and RMRI, and I mean really, like, this group is the RMRI strategy group for this area. And so in terms of like when an RMRI meeting versus a this group meeting, I would hope that we can start to bring that together to where it's just the same thing, because we're really looking at the big picture of the high priority areas in this landscape. And that's going to go for CFLRP, and that's going to go for these other things. I mean, a lot of these are just funding programs to help us achieve our kind of overall landscape and community vision in these areas. And so I just would like put out there that I would love these things to be integrated, and that it's actually the same thing that we're talking about here in terms of the structure in the meetings. It's just, this is the focused area group for this landscape.
I like it. Yeah, I think we'll get there in a transition of that, so for sure.
Cool.
So kind of recapping here.
Yeah.
We do have a CFLRP kickoff meeting in January. And again, we'll get folks signed up for that if you haven't got an invite to it. A lot of great content today, a lot to process. Big thanks to Shauna for compiling into the mind map here. RMRI meeting in February. Sounds like there's a couple of things that might need to happen. This is the classic chicken and egg, how we collaborate to do things kind of conversation, but those of us on the coordinating seat will speak a bit. Jason and I know we'll be speaking a bit more in the early part of next month on the mapping in particular. Potentially we could have a small subgroup of this group get together before the RMRI meeting to talk a bit more about mapping stuff before we dive into that meeting in February. Definitely, I think getting this full group together March at the latest for the bigger conversation and what we call this group, like we can have a long conversation about that at some other time. But sort of the Plata coordinating kind of effort is good enough for the time being. putting together a kind of shared document. I'm thinking, part of me is just thinking of sending out a Google form document for you all to kind of fill in like your top 3, talking points, so we can compile that into something a bit more cogent for the near term. What am I missing here, Aaron?
I think that's pretty good as far as next time. We have some good meetings going forward. There'll be the CFRP, there'll be the RMRI. We'll be able to then identify maybe some gaps that we might want to, to think through together again for the La Plata County area RMRI. And yeah, and then John Frisch is just feeling, the fuel loading and drought crisis, he's really feeling there's some pressure here, and I get that. And so I think that'll be a part of that.
Folks online, any last thoughts from anybody?
It's a big meeting and really appreciate it. And everybody squeezing it in on a Friday, right before their holiday break. Thank you all so much.
So if there are no other thoughts from folks, thank you, Nick. With that, I guess a big happy holidays and happy new year to everyone. And hopefully everyone gets a nice little break here and comes in refreshed to power through with a massive parking lot that we need to plow through, use some metaphors here, in the new year.
It's super exciting to see our community coming together like this, and for RMRI and helping to finagle across all these boundaries. And just all the partners coming together. Really amazing.
Yeah, thanks. And kind of with that, I think Aaron and I might go over to Ska just for a bite to eat afterwards. If folks do want to join us in person, we'll be there for another hour or so, probably after this conversation. So with that, thank you all for joining us. And again, happy holidays.
And thank you, Andy, for being the one on the Juan Timber Company.
Yes.
Thanks, Andy. For typing that crazy thing out. For Emily Swindell.
Guys, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Thanks all.
Bye. Yeah, that's nice that it's a break. Let's go take a break. Get my hat. Right?
Woo!
Totally.
There is so much happening. It's really great to have that conversation with everybody.
And then I gotta prove your point.
You're off the clock.